This is dedicated to the homies that was down since day one. Welcome to Drop D.
The JFK Assassination News and Notes Podcast with your hosts, Rob Clark and Doug Campbell.
Hey, hello, what is up? Welcome to Quick Hits, a JFK Assassination Research and Study News and Notes Podcast. My name is Doug Campbell. I will once again be serving as 50% of your hosts today. And as always, the other 50% is right here with me. Hey, Rob Clark.
What is up, Doug? But today, let me smallly correct you. We are 33 1/3% of our hosts today.
Yes, we are. We have a guest commentator at the table, a longtime listener. I dare say this individual has been with us and chiming in, asking good questions via email and swell since episode 1, I believe. Why don't you introduce
You've heard her voice.
Yeah, introduce our lovely guest, man.
Please welcome, yes, from the Great White North, Miss Caroline Chason.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us, Miss Caroline. This is indeed a pleasure. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a lot of fun. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today.
Yes, and you sound much better than you did last month. We were trying to do this last month, people, but Caroline sounded like she was gargling rocks back then. So, but yes, back today, full force.
We have the BC fires going on, so it's still an issue. Coughing it's an issue. I'll mute myself when necessary.
There you go.
Absolutely, yeah. Recover. Don't blow your voice out on our account. You know, we could talk enough bullshit for like 10 people amongst us, just me and Rob. All right, well, guys, this is Quick Hits. It is a news and notes, research and study podcast. What we bring to you is topics, random stuff that we come across while we study the JFK assassination. Rob, I believe, my man, you got the first one, right?
I do. All right, so I was perusing, as I sometimes do, different resources of files out there on the interwebs, and I came across something over on Dealey Plaza, UK, in the Malcolm Blunt archive that is not online, and sadly it is incomplete. But the part of it we do have is quite telling and kind of explosive. So what I got here.
So this is from the Malcolm Blunt archive.
Yes.
Now,
yes. Thank you, Bart, for uploading it.
Thank you, Bart, for uploading it. Not to interrupt, but we need to get to know our buddy over here, dude. Miss Caroline, we got to get to know her. We got to get to know her, research her like habits, you know, what she likes to dig. Miss Caroline, hey, what is your, right now, as you research, what's your repository of choice when it comes to studying, say, declassified stuff?
I'm sorry. I was just plugging into my power source. I didn't know you were asking me a question. One more time there, Doug. I'm very sorry.
I said you've only got 10 fingers and 10 toes, right?
Yep.
Okay, that wasn't the question. That's actually not what I asked.
I have an extra nipple, though.
You too?
No,
wow.
No joke, dude.
Really? So does Rob. Yep. What I was asking was we're gonna get to know you. Rob is about to read this document from the Malcolm Blunt archive, and what I was asking was, in your studies right now, what's your repository of choice for, documentary material that you like to study nowadays?
Well, actually, that's funny that you asked, because once I found the Lone Gunman podcast, I was not aware of all the paperwork that Doug was reading, and it blew my mind away. And so I had actually, you know how we all have to take a break? So yep. I had taken a break for about 5 years, and I actually thought maybe I was just done. I didn't know what had happened, and I stopped caring actually for a bit. And then when I heard the podcast and all the new evidence, and it was pointing so much to specifically Lauren Hall, all the Cuban exiles, just really got me going. And so I love that, and I've been all on top of that ever since Lone Gunman. But
See, Rob, look at the good you did right there.
Oh, he said Rob has changed my family's life. No joke.
That's
the
awesome.
whole family listens to it.
So, okay, Rob, pray continue, sir. Hey, where'd Rob go?
He's muted.
There we go. Sorry. Or as Caroline would say, sorry.
Yeah, I know.
I got to bust your balls every once in a while here. It's par for the course.
I know. It's going to be a lot of stories.
This is from the HSCA. It is from October the 20th, 1977, an interview with Harold Dean Norman, who was, of course, a co-worker of Lee Harvey Oswald's at the School Book Depository. And this is concerning his activities of November the 22nd, 1963, the motorcade, and his interaction with the Warren Commission. So, as I said before, this file is incomplete. It's actually 44 pages long, but we don't have all that. We only have pages 28 to 33. But so it kind of jumps right in the middle here. But what we do have is very telling, and I'd like someday see this entire interview. But he's being interviewed by Day from the HSCA, and he's talking about having to go to Washington to testify before the Warren Commission. So let's jump right in here. He says, Day and Maxwell are the ones interviewing Norman.
Okay.
So Maxwell says, okay, on the 26th of November, I believe you were interviewed by an agent from the FBI. Norman says, yes. Maxwell says, can you recall that? Norman says, I think. Maxwell said, did he take a statement from you, or did he ask you to tell him what happened and he wrote it out and you signed it or you didn't sign? Norman says, I don't recall of anybody taking a statement from me. Maxwell says, well, I'll read it to you and you tell me if this is correct as far as you can remember what happened, what you told this agent. All right, you told him your name is Harold Dean Norman. You lived at 4858 Beulah Street. You were employed as a shipping clerk in the TSBD, 411 Elm Street, Dallas, Texas. You stated that around noon on November 22nd, 1963, you and fellow employees James Jarman and Bonnie Ray Williams were watching the presidential motorcade from the windows on the 5th floor of the School Book Depository. He stated about the time of the car in which the president was riding turned on Elm Street, he heard a shot. He said he thought the shot had been fired from the floor directly above him. He further stated at this time he stuck his head from the window and looked upwards towards the roof but could see nothing because small particles of dirt were falling from above him. He stated 2 additional shots were fired after he pulled his head back in from the window. He stated that he could see people walking towards the other end of the building. He, Jarman, and Williams ran to the other end of the room and looked out of the window there. He stated he saw nothing, and he then returned to the window from which he had been previously looking. Norman stated he knew Lee Harvey Oswald as a fellow employee and only talked to him when his work required him to. He stated he does not recall Oswald ever having visitors at the book depository or ever associating with anyone employed there. And it's signed, well, it's not signed, but it was typed in by Special Agent Benjamin Kutzer, and that's FBI file number DL8943 on 11/26/63. Now, when they talked to you, they made this as a result of a conversation with you. Norman says, I really don't recall giving any statement to the FBI. If this happened, it must have happened one morning prior to that long way to the airport. But just as far as the one coming back, I don't recall any. Maxwell says, well, now they say this was written up on the 26th. Would have made it the Monday or Tuesday after the assassination. When you came back to work that Monday, did someone talk to you? Norman says, I don't recall. I don't think anybody did. All right. Now, I think Norman is getting a little confused in timing as far as right after the assassination when the FBI would have talked to him. And he's saying that the FBI didn't talk to him until he was on his way to Washington to testify for the Warren Commission, which was many months later.
Well, yeah. What month did he testify to the Warren Commission?
I don't know. I think it would have had to been at least March of '64, if not later than that.
Yeah. So the FBI did not interview
Norman,
him between his plane trip, or between the assassination and his plane trip.
Yeah, well, he says, I don't recall. I don't think anybody did. And so Day asked him, did you ever testify before the Warren Commission? And he says, yes. You went to Washington, D.C. He says, yes. And Day says, all right, now, as far as this statement is concerned, is there anything in that statement that you think is not right? Norman said, well, I think the part about I said where he said that I got up and looked out the window and looked up, then left and came back. We left and came back to the window. I don't. And Maxwell interrupts him and says, you don't recall ever doing that? Norman says, Day says, do you recall giving that statement to an FBI agent? Norman says, no, I don't. Day says, do you recall ever having to sign any statement? Norman says, no.
Well, that's not the first time we've heard that. You know,
right.
What was her name? Julianne Mercer? The witness that says that she saw the pickup truck, you know, and Jack Ruby.
Yeah, Ruby.
Down on Dealey Plaza, what'd she say, an hour and a half, 2 hours before? I can't remember. But she swears that there were things in her statement she never said.
Yeah.
And that's not the first time we've heard of that, is people going, well, I never said that. I never talked to them, you know.
Even signatures
right. The FBI
were
changed
signed.
Victoria Adams' statement.
Yeah, signatures forged, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't sign that.
All right, he says, he asked Norman, do you recall sitting with somebody and they were typing as you were talking? Norman says, the only time I recall anybody typing when we were talking is when we were at the Warren Commission. Day says, well, tell me how you got to the Warren Commission. Norman says, well, they had an agent. I believe he came and picked us up in a car, and he carried us to the airport. Norman says, well, I know that it was a gent picked up at the airport and carried us to the Willard Hotel. And Maxwell asked him, how did you get to Washington? They sent you a ticket? Or Norman says, yes. And you stayed at the Willard Hotel in D.C.? Norman says, yes. In Washington, I believe that's the name of the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue before they tore it down, isn't it? Day says, right, okay. This was Agent Joe Harlett, the card you showed me? Norman says, I believe that was him. I did have one or two more cards, but I don't recall what happened to them. Day says, when you got to Washington, name some of the people if you can, or if there were any there from Dallas that was there the day you were there, the time you were there. Norman says, well, I know Jarman and Williams, Bonnie Ray Williams, they were there. And Day said, you all traveled together. And Norman says, right. Day said, okay. And Norman said, I think Truly went with us. Day said, Norman says, yes. Day said, all right. Norman said, well, then there was another guy. He didn't work at the depository. He was a construction character or something. I think he went the same day we did. Day said, do you know what he was testifying about? Norman said, I think he was the guy that was testifying that he saw a rifle hanging out the window. He was a construction worker standing across the street. I can't recall what his name was.
Does that witness, that a construction worker that sound familiar to either of you guys? I'm trying to think. I don't think I recall a construction worker.
I remember someone in a construction hat, absolutely.
A witness.
That was
I think even in JFK they have a scene where you see someone dressed like that.
Rob knows his Dealey Plaza witnesses. I knew if he thought about it, he'd figure it out.
Yeah, I can't remember his name, but he's the guy that the initial description was given from, and I can't remember his name offhand. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but yeah, he's the guy that was pretty much Howard Brennan. There we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've heard that name. I did not see. Okay, I did not know he was a construction worker, I guess, or it got, just never registered with me. Okay, cool.
Yep. And then Day said, do you remember seeing a kid there? Norman says, a kid? No, I don't recall seeing one. And that's all we have from this 44-page interview of Harold Norman. But, why I thought it was kind of explosive is the events that have always been described to us as part of that day that have entered the whole canon and the whole the lore of that day is that these guys were standing under the 6th floor window and heard these shells hitting the ground and dust was falling from the ceiling and they could hear somebody walking around up there, and they were moving around and, running down and looking out other windows and then coming back.
I remember seeing an interview
after the first shot.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was saying that after the first shot, he said he stuck his head out the window and then pulled his head back in before the second shot. But I mean, if you stick your head out of a window and you're looking around and try to see what the hell that noise was, I would think that next shot would come before you could pull your head back in.
That
also,
whole
no videos or photos show anyone sticking their head out of a window.
Right.
Now I have seen photos of, I think it's Bonnie Ray Williams, looking kind of.
Yes, you can see something. Kind
of looking over the window sill. Is that right, Rob? I believe I've seen those, but I've never. Man, that whole.
Yeah, I think that's the PAL photo, but you're looking at 45 seconds to a minute after the shots.
I know. And if you guys remember the Men Who Killed Kennedy,
of course,
there's an interview, I believe, with Bonnie Ray Williams, or at least those guys in there, and he's telling the story about, was the rifle goes off, and he goes, "What was that? Sounded like a rifle." I'm telling you, if a rifle goes off that close to you, you're gonna know.
Right? If you're standing right under it, open windows.
Yeah.
Connolly apparently knew from very far away.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. But yeah, that's not something, I don't know. It just always struck me as a little bit, when it talks about plaster hits his head, well, what is that on my head? Oh, wow, there's another shot. I don't know, man.
Well, there's definitely some fuckery going on around here.
That's what I'm saying.
Because, these guys we know were on the 5th floor. Okay, we know they were. Of course, you have Bonnie Ray Williams up on the 6th floor as late as 12:15, eating his sandwich and smoking a cigarette and drinking a Dr. Pepper. But, he left a bag of chicken bones up there, the bottle, cigarette butts, pretty damn close to the alleged sniper nest. You know what I mean? So, but we also have Jack Doherty, who claims that he was on the 5th floor at the time of the shots.
Yeah,
Jack Doherty's very interesting to me.
But the 3 black guys say they didn't see him. And Doherty says he didn't see them. So what the hell is going on around here? And back then, of course, times were different, and I think a lot of these black guys that were working there were either afraid to tell the truth, or they did tell the truth, but their stories were changed. And here we have a prime example of that.
A completely fabricated statement. Or what appears to be.
A completely fabricated statement that he didn't give. Yeah. Now, of course, they can ship him to the Warren Commission, and we can go over what he told the Warren Commission. But then again, it's drastically different from what he told the HSCA. And in the other part of the Norman interview that I've come across, it kind of implicates that Frazier was driving Oswald to work every morning. So, which is something he didn't tell the Warren Commission, something not in his statement. But yet we hear the same thing from Edward Shields, who was an employee at the other depository building, Harold Norman, Junior Jarman, and who's another guy? The young kid that worked at the school book depository that Larry Rivera got on tape saying that he brought him to work all the time.
I'm drawing a blank.
I'm so bad with names. God.
Well, there's so many to remember.
Yeah,
so many characters involved in this
Frazier, thing. He said Frazier always parked behind the school book depository at the curve there of Houston Street. That's where they normally parked, and he normally got out every morning and came into work. And several of them said he rode with him all the time.
It makes sense that he would.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a nice guy, Buell Frazier, and this poor son of a bitch doesn't have a car, and you're coming right in by him anyway, why wouldn't you either give him a ride home from work or pick him up and bring him to work?
Yep, I agree.
Again, there's absolutely no proof that Oswald rode the bus to work, to and from work every day. There's no bus driver saying that. There's no people on the bus saying, "Oh, God damn, I rode with the assassin for 6 weeks on a bus every day and didn't know it."
No,
it's amazing that no one has come out and said anything. It just didn't exist. That's why.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I've never, heard anybody else say, "Well, no, he took this route to work." So yeah, I get that.
So Rob, when I saw what you were going to do, or what you were doing on Norman, I went and just typed in some stuff and looked up. Did you see the YouTube video of his other totally crazy story? There's a 4-minute and 4-second YouTube video of him speaking, and he tells it's very hard to hear, but I stuck it to my ear. And he tells a story about the FBI taking him into the school book depository and reenacting the shooting. But he said that they didn't shoot the guns; they just dropped the bullets. What are they called? Shells. Sorry, guys. And it's hard to hear, but it's out there, and he has contradicting things in that as well. I thought that might be what you were hitting on.
Oh,
well, that just adds more to the mystery of all this,
Yeah, yeah. The FBI was working with him very much so.
Yeah, and very much conflicting and confounding the statements of the people that worked in that depository. I believe it wasn't just them. It wasn't just Victoria Adams. It wasn't just Frazier. It was a lot of the main players who were never going to know the truth from.
I did a lot of research on Jack Doherty after one of your podcasts, and I wrote out a whole thing to talk about one day about it because I have a lot to say, and I figured out some things due to his mental capacity.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
They always say he was like borderline retarded,
Yeah. I have an autistic son, so I took in what this guy was capable of and what I know people all different on the spectrum are capable of, and I put together what I think happened, so one day we'll hopefully talk about that.
Well, there you go. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I got an inside actual, I know how it works. Yeah.
Well, the statements, altered statements, just completely fabricated. You can sow a lot of you can cloud a lot of waters with a well placed fabricated sentence in a statement here and there.
Well, that's why nothing adds up, man.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
nothing adds up at all. Nobody saw anybody on the stairway, after the shots. But you have Truly and Baker supposedly on there. You have Adams and Stiles coming down. Otis Wilson coming down. Doherty somewhere between the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors. And
Oswald.
Nothing jives.
You got Lee Oswald at about 7 or 8 different alleged locations, depending on which book you read last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he in the domino room? Was he out on the front steps? Was he up on the 6th floor? I mean, how could you not know somebody else is on this? Is like a couple feet away from you. If you're sitting there eating your sandwich or eating your chicken, smoking a cigarette, I mean, it's got to be complete silence in a big ass empty warehouse floor.
Yeah, and it wasn't like there was a crowd of 60 people up there either.
Right. I mean, he's sitting literally 10 feet away from the sniper's nest, but you don't hear anything, and you're sitting there for at least 10 minutes, 15 minutes to eat and smoke a cigarette. But you hear nothing? I don't know, man.
Well, it's just like you say. I don't know.
The fuckery continues.
The fuckery continues.
We're going to be on our deathbeds just being like, God, what happened?
I hope not. I hope I know what happened. I hope I know what happened before I die, for sure.
I feel like I'm starting to get it. I do. I feel like, even though that changes over, 25 friggin' years all the time, but I feel like the Cuban thing is the right way to go.
I hope I know. It
helps
but
when you can eliminate other possibilities.
Yeah.
Once you have eliminated the impossible, whatever's left, however improbable, must be the truth. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. That's Sherlock
Yes.
Holmes. I've repeated that. I've repeated that on my podcast probably 20 times, and it's true. Once you've eliminated the impossible, whatever's left. It's impossible that Lee Oswald did the shooting that they say he did. It's impossible. And there you go. Start from there.
Right.
It's eliminated. Thanks to the good work of a lot of researchers before me,
Yep. Well, that's it for my topic. Now, next up is Miss Caroline with a very fascinating topic that has to do actually with her family. I've been waiting to hear this story for a long time. So please, Caroline, lay it on us.
Okay. This is actually nerve-wracking for me to do, as I'm going to be talking about some things that no one has ever heard in the Guzhenko story. So, but I'm just going to start with, I guess, a synopsis of my grandparents' life, and not my grandparents so much, but more my great-grandmother. And then it will tie in with the Marina stuff at the end. After I speak about Marina. Okay, so I start with my grandparents first. Okay. My great-grandfather is Igor Guzhenko. He was born in Moscow in 1919. He was an architect and started work for the military when World War II started. He was a cipher clerk stationed in Ottawa, Canada. But he is known as a spy, a hero, a traitor, and the man that started the Cold War. My great-grandmother's name is Svetlana Borisnova Guseva. She was born on Christmas Day, 1923, in Uzbekistan. At 18 years old, but I'm telling you guys it wasn't 18, it was probably more 15, 16. She started to work for the Red Army as a sniper pilot. Not only a sniper pilot, she was trained to kill people with her bare hands. The list is endless what this woman did in her life. At one point, when she was a sniper pilot, her co-pilot was shot and killed, and she actually was pregnant and rolled off of a plane off of the wing. She had to get it close to the ground and roll off. This woman.
Oh, wow.
And this is your grandmother.
This is my great-grandmother.
Okay, this is your great-grandmother.
Yeah, so just so everyone's aware, I grew up in the house being raised by my grandmother and great-grandmother. And my grandfather, Guzhenko, he had passed away babysitting me, and we'll get to that later on. Okay, so it's not like they're just these far distant relatives that I don't know much about. I lived every day hearing insanity stories that, I was a kid. I thought they were insane. Then I grew up and realized, oh my goodness, my grandma was a very smart woman, and what happened was insane. So anyway, here we go. My grandparents apparently meet at an architect school. Okay, so now they get married, and the story is so conflicted that I can just go from here.
Now, where do they meet? This was in Europe?
Sorry, in Russia, in Moscow.
In Russia, okay.
Yeah, so apparently they meet at an architect school. Now, I had a talk with my great-grandmother, and she said that, yes, she did meet my great-grandfather there. So I take her word for it because she told me a lot at the end. So my great-grandfather gets sent. So Guzhenko gets sent to Ottawa. Now, that's odd on its own, but at the time, Canada thought that Russia was our allies. So anyway, Guzhenko was sent there to do his cipher work. But oddly, my grandma was allowed to follow him to Ottawa. That's not normal. They were granted an extremely rare independence from the embassy compound where the other employees were housed, and they were able to live in an apartment on a street called Somerset Street. It's become a famous museum now where they used to live. So, okay, so there's that. And while they were there, my grandfather, very important because they make it seem like this was all his plan. Not at all. This was my great-grandmother's plan. She was like, you take these documents and we're getting out of here. So Guzhenko defected on September 5th, 1945 with 109 documents. This was only 3 days after World War II ended. We thought the Russians were our allies, and of course we found out they were not. The documents proved, that's exactly what I was saying, that they were not our allies. They had spies planted everywhere in Canada, especially surrounding the Prime Minister Mackenzie King at the time. In my house, the thing was everyone was a spy from cleaning his toilet to driving his car. That was the thing that was said in my house. It exposed Russians working in Canada Parliament, Fred Rose being a prominent one. It wasn't just Canada. They had been spying on the U.S. and Great Britain with the same force. The classified info in the docs contained military, diplomatic, and scientific secrets, research on radar, code breaking, and most importantly, the atomic bomb. Kuzanko claimed that the Soviets are planning world domination. Okay, so that happens, and that's a very large story of how he defects and what goes on, but we won't get into that. But one cool thing I want to mention is, do you guys know who William Stevenson is?
No, ma'am.
No.
He is the real life 007. You should pick up a book on them. He some interesting stories in there, man. So no one was believing my grandfather because he could only speak Russian, and so they thought, they thought he was a drunk. They didn't know what was going on when he was trying to go to the, RCMP and the newspapers with all this information. And this William Stevenson man stepped in and saved my grandfather and our family's life. So my family was sent to Camp X, and that is a secret military training base in Canada that was hidden for years, but now it's a museum. After my grandparents' story ends and they settle down in Mississauga, Ontario, there are 2 movies made. There's more than that, but 2 very famous ones. One called The Iron Curtain, one called Operation Manhunt. I suggest you guys both watch them in a row. And then also, my grandfather and grandmother both are authors and wrote. My grandpa won an award for one book, and, well, there you go. And then we'll get back to Grandma's story because it's very important and matches up with Marina's a little bit once I start that.
Oh, really?
So you guys ready? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you guys, okay, so here we go. Lots of paperwork I did. I want everyone to know that I sourced this from mainly 2 books. So I went from Summers' Conspiracy and J. Epstein's Legend, so that everything that is here is 100% sourced and not anyone's opinion. Let me find my first paper.
So you're not going to transcribe this so people can go read it and reference it and resource it, put it on the web? We don't transcribe our shit. No, yeah. I don't know if you know that, Miss Caroline, but I got my ass chewed online for not transcribing the episodes.
Really?
Oh, yeah. By a cantankerous old dude.
So
what are you going to do?
Where's my damn first paper here? Oh, my goodness, guys.
It's all right. Take your time. Find it out.
Yeah, I might have to actually walk upstairs. I might have left it on my living room couch, and I am so sorry.
Oh, no.
It's all right.
I can't start that without the main.
Me and Doug will fill while you go check.
Okay. I'll mute myself.
Hey, you know what we could do? We could take
What's
this
that?
opportunity to introduce a new sponsor to the show, Rob.
Please do.
Okay, let's do it. It's a new sponsor, guys, we just recently picked up.
The next time you visit lovely Austria, stay at Farker's Head Roadside Motel. Ask for our presidential suite, where redneck podcasters stay rent-free.
Brought to you by the Austrian Tourism Council. We'd like to welcome them. Welcome them aboard.
Welcome, Farker's Head Hotel.
Welcome aboard.
I found the paper.
Excellent. Good timing. Pray continue, Miss Caroline.
Okay, I got to catch my breath from that laugh there. Hold on. Oh, my. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going into a very quick synopsis that we're all aware of. Everyone's aware of Marina and Lee's life. And the reason I'm going to word it this way is basically the same thing as my grandparents. I'm just going to, I'm going to go. Marina was born on July 17th, 1941 in Russia. By age 14, she attends a pharmacy school, I'm just going to call it that, for 5 years. Excuse me. Under what the Warren Report called special training. She received her diploma in 1959, I'm assuming at the age of 18 or 19. She got a job at a warehouse, really putting that diploma to work, and she quit after 1 day. 2 months later, she moved to her uncle's place in Minsk. Okay, so things seem on the up and up for young, beautiful Marina, who works, goes to dances, and is dating 2 men, Sasha and Anatoly. And then in mid-March of 1961, she meets a man named Alec, who speaks Russian and is attending a trade union dance. They enjoy themselves and meet again one last time before Alec has to cancel the date because he has an ear infection or an earache. He goes into the hospital and she is allowed to visit after hours and on Sundays, apparently due to her uniform, as she claims. They spend days together and Alec has an operation to remove his adenoids. And then he pops the big question from the hospital bed. This is a more romantic story than The Notebook. And she accepts. They are married on April 30th, 1961, just 6 weeks after their first meeting. Marina says that within a month after her marriage, Oswald now wanted to move and return home to America. During this time of waiting for her permission to return, Marina gives birth to her first daughter, June, in February. Guys, guess what? I figured out the math. She was pregnant while she got married. Just want to throw that out there.
It's a shotgun wedding.
Yep, she was pregnant, guys. Okay, so they were both granted permission to head to the U.S. and departed on June 2nd, 1961. So now we went through this timeline specifically to dissect it. Okay, or the crazy batshit inconsistencies.
All right.
Okay, so her birth and birth certificate. She claims she did not know her father, and that's why her mother's maiden name, that's why she used her mother's maiden name. In 1977, she thought that her stepdad was her real father. Her stories were wish-washy as usual, and there's more details made in Priscilla Johnson Macmillan's book. But why? My question is, and I'll go into it later, but the hiding of her background is suspicious, and we'll get to that later. So her birth is odd. And, okay, the certificate. The birth certificate used for her wedding to Oswald, it was new. And it listed her birthplace as Severodvinsk, but that town was not named until 1957. So Marina was 16 when that town got the name. When questioned by the Warren Commission, she said that she lost it at some point.
When was the town named? Did you say 1957?
Yes, she was 16 years old.
So we know the birth certificate was at least manufactured after that, whether or not it might have been a replacement for a lost one.
Yes, she says that it was a replacement for a lost one. She doesn't remember when she lost it, but that she needed one to get married, so that was her new one.
Yeah.
And she has no explanation for why it has a different town that, was named that. So when questioned, she said, she lost hers at some point and needed a new one. She again acquired another birth certificate just a month and a half later on June 19th, 1961, so she could travel to the U.S. This birth certificate listed her birthplace as Leningrad. This birth certificate also had her middle name changed from Alexandra Nova, to Nicola Vina. So this is a very big deal. Russians have a strict system requiring that the middle name identifies the person's father. The father name, stories, changes, and identities. This is an issue. It seems almost like they were in order to change her identity prior to her entrance to America. I mean, the birth certificates are a mess, and there had to be more before that too, right? Because she got that second one, the second one we know of, just to marry Oswald. So, anyway.
So there's three.
Yeah, you think
total?
that one would have sufficed to make the trip, but apparently not.
Yeah. So and now we're up to. We're up to three, right?
Yeah, at least. And she, they also must have noticed the difference in the town name and had to have changed that. So, later I'll go into the middle name changings. I think I wrote about that. But okay, now we go to schooling and work. She says she went to school for 5 years, and when she finished with her diploma, got a job at a warehouse, and then worked for one day, and then she quit. She then went on a holiday. Okay, that's not normal. Working one day, quitting, and then having a holiday was so far from normal in the Soviet Union, even today. So she would have been in deep trouble with the Komsomol, that's how you say it, her trade union and her uncle. Like very, very big trouble, punishment. Okay, so we'll go back to schooling after. Her uncle, Eli Prusakov, he was a much higher ranking figure in Russia, specifically Minsk. than we are led to believe. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Russia's Ministry of Interior, so basically the FBI of there, a respected engineer and a member of the Communist Party. That brings me to wonder about the 5 years prior to her moving to her uncle's when she started school for special training. A 14-year-old studying pharmaceuticals for 5 years to do zero with it, nothing makes sense minus that minor job at the hospital. But again, we'll get back to that subject. So, meeting and marriage of Oswald. In her HSCA testimony, she doesn't know when or where she met Lee. In the same testimony,
Really?
No joke, guys, I was blown away. I spent I've never deep dived Marina before, so it's really interesting.
I can't even imagine somebody. Where'd you meet your husband? I don't know.
She makes me crazy sometimes. So also in the House Select Committee of Assassinations, she had the year and month wrong of the marriage. That's something women remember, guys. You know, I don't care if you're from Russia. You remember when you get married.
Everybody remembers that. I mean, I guarantee you, Elizabeth Taylor, I know she'd been married. She was married 8 times, but I guarantee you she could tell you, well, I married Eddie Fisher on this day, and I married Richard Burton on. I guarantee you she knows. You don't forget that. Not even her.
Right. That's so funny. Absolutely. Okay. So this is the biggest one to me, and I'm pretty sure that you guys know about this, but, you know, a lot of people don't. So literally, she couldn't try harder to look like a friggin' spy. So it was discovered that she had met and had at least a sexual relationship with an American defector, Edward Robert Webster. He was a former Navy man who defected before Oswald and returned to the U.S. right around the same time. During this relationship, Webster claimed Marina spoke English. That's huge, not Russian.
Yeah, Webster was an interesting guy. He worked for a company called Rand Corporation, which is
I was looking into that.
A think tank, basically attached, or that works for the U.S. government for military intelligence specifically. I know nowadays it's Air Force intelligence. And he was over there for the big Moscow Expo.
Yep.
Worked with and it was in plastics, you know, new plastics technology, and you know, defected, and like Oswald was allowed to come back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also settled down with a woman. He didn't marry her, but they did have a child there. There was another in conspiracy. I should have written it down, but there was another man who had defected, an American, who said that they were told to marry Soviet women. But so around the same time they came home. During this relationship, Webster spoke English. In the 1976 Freedom of Information Act, we discovered that Marina had another holiday in the summer of 1960 at a government rest home in Leningrad. That's a 24-hour train ride. Okay. I assume this is when the Sparrow landed.
Yeah.
I watched that movie last night, by the way, guys. Okay. So you both know it's impossible that she would have met 2 defectors from America, and apparently there's a third too. So, okay.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say she actually met 3.
Yeah.
Had a relationship with 2 of them and married 1.
Yeah.
In a country as big as Russia, to meet 3 American defectors, have a relationship with 2,
ride.
and marry 1 is a little.
Yeah, that's no coincidence. That's no coincidence.
No.
And, you know, I've had a
Sounds like a job.
Bill Simpich and I had a long conversation about Marina Oswald, you know, and I think he used the word honey trap, you know, or the phrase honey trap.
I think 100%. And at the end, this will be exactly where I'm going, clearly. So, okay. Marina sent a letter to the Soviet embassy in Washington in July of 1962 to inform them of her new address. But that letter was specifically addressed to Vitel Gerasimov. I had to do phonetics on this, which the CIA records show that he was known to have participated in clandestine meetings in his country and to have made payments for intelligent info that would value the Soviets. Things that make you go, right? Right, Rob?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
In 1962, do you guys know about the James Eglinton's mail surveillance ridiculous issue where they were opening mail for at least a year, like pretty much everybody's mail? and reading it, taking photographs of it?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so during that,
Well, especially coming in and out of Russia.
Well, you'd expect they'd be on top of that 100%. So they had intercepted a letter that was sent to Marina from Leningrad. It was from it was supposed to be from a female named Ella, but when the CIA investigated the address, it turned out to be from the home of Igor Sobolev, an agent of the First Chief Directorate, the senior intelligence branch of the KGB. I guess she was probably just friends with his wife, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe they went to pharmacy school together.
Yeah, maybe.
Absolutely possible.
Oh, but that's Leningrad, right? Where did she go to school? Oh, yeah, because she had to travel to Minsk after. That's right. Okay. So I think a lot of people might know about this one, that Marina told an acquaintance of hers, Katya Ford, that her husband had defected to the Soviet Union after working at an American exhibition in Moscow. Now, remember, that is the American defector Robert Webster's story. That is
right.
Oswald's scenario. And how could you get that wrong? You know?
Aiming for several different American defectors, you could mix them up easy, I guess.
So, Priscilla Johnson McMillan, I hate saying the huge name, like Jesus woman, interviews Oswald while in Moscow, in 59, and then befriends Moreno to write her book, fuck off. And then one last thing I have here.
We did a little thing. She passed away recently, and I learned some. I learned some stuff. Sort of researching her for that segment we did in the last show that I did not know, like how far back at least Priscilla Johnson McMillan's attempts to get hired by the agency were. Didn't know that previous.
Oh, I could tell right away. I was like, that woman's wrong when I was a kid.
She's another one that seemed to be right there, right there when she needed to be.
Oh yeah, she's a plant, 100%. Well, in my head, this is something that bothered me. So it's just an inconsistency that when I found out made me psychotic, and I had to dig in. So remember, did you guys hear? Obviously, Marina said that Oswald wanted to go and kill Nixon one day, and she had to lock him in the bathroom.
Yeah, and she held the bathroom door.
Okay.
But
she held the bath. She said she held the bathroom door.
Aren't most bathroom
put her foot
doors
against it?
Well, no.
Okay.
Think about bathroom doors; they open to the inside.
Exactly that, and because when they did their investigation, they found that of course it only locks from the other side.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue is that Nixon wasn't even in Dallas.
No.
It's ridiculous. So we have a woman who 1 second can speak English and the next minute doesn't understand a simple question because her English isn't good. Everything points to Marina being trained or schooled to end up where she did. I believe she wanted out, but I also question how she got so lucky to bed. I think it was her uncle. I don't know. So here's where I'm going to talk about my grandma now and the similarities of things. So these have never been spoken about ever. And so I'm terrified of the backlash from my family. Sorry, family. My great-grandma, on her deathbed, she had 2 weeks, and we could tell that she wasn't doing well. She was sick with pancreatic cancer. And I wanted to ask her every question I could. I think I was 20 years old or 21 years old at that time. And so every day and night I laid in her bed and I drilled her full of questions. And I didn't actually harp on her Red Army history or anything because I wasn't so aware of certain things at that point. So I asked about questions like, how did you fall in love with Grandpa? Normal grandkid question.
Well, yeah, a normal question that a normal granddaughter would ask her grandmother.
Absolutely.
Not, how old were you when you learned to field dress a Walther PPK, Grandma? That's not something, normal.
Exactly.
It's not, Yeah.
We were. Oh, also, when I was growing up, we were told that I was Czechoslovakian until I was in grade 9. Like we had to lie our whole lives, have fake last name. You have no idea what it was like growing up.
Really?
Oh, and then Grandpa in school, and then I'd have to be removed from class, probably like the Oswalds. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But so my great grandma when I asked how she met my grandpa. She did tell me she met him at the architect school. So there's something, and I trust my grandma. And here's what I don't understand. Actually, sorry, I have to say that my grandma told me she didn't love my great-grandfather, or my great-grandma told me she didn't love my great-grandfather, and that I just absolutely died. My heart crushed. I was like, what are you talking about? Because in my head, they were the like best friend couples, you know? Like, I thought something different. I didn't know. It seems that I asked her, then why did you marry? She told me that she loved a boy who died in the war. And then I was like, Jesus, you know, sorry.
What was it, like they were partners in an intelligence op thing?
This is what I said. Why did you marry him? Because I don't realize what her life was like, right? So I said, why did you marry him? And she stalled and she said, convenience. And now my grandpa had zero to offer her. So I think that was her way of, you know, she can't say I was forced to, I had to. This is the way things worked back then. You know what I mean? But when she was at the very end, she came to me and my grandmother, and she went on audio, video, and she also wrote it all down. My grandma was a constant memoir taker. And she told us stuff. I can't reveal all of it, but she told us that she had to do I don't want to say honeypot. She had to do all of those awful sexual things. There you go. She had to sleep with men, even when married to my grandfather. Her boss, I'm not going to say his name, and people can find it. It's crazy what she told. And there's much more to it. But the fact is, here's this. So if my grandma was trained as an architect, right? She went to architecture school. When did she have time to learn how to be a pilot, a sniper pilot, like together? Because that's a rare thing. And
well,
then
she wasn't actually studying architecture.
Exactly. But here's the weird thing. Growing up in the house in Mississauga, she never stopped working on her architecture. So she truly must have wanted that maybe in life and started and maybe got pulled.
Think about it. It was her cover, so she had to know about it, right?
Oh, sorry. I'm leaving out the biggest thing. Okay, so Rob, one day I was listening to the Lone Gunman, and I don't know what episode it was, but I think you were questioning how Marina got here so easily. And then me and my brother got on the phone, and I said, how the heck did Grandma get here? And then, no joke, I called my grandmother and said, listen, this is not normal. This is inconsistent. And my grandma said, there's a podcast coming out soon. I suggest you listen to it. My grandmother does a lot of podcasts for the Cold War. Anyhow, when I listened to it, I found out that my great-grandma was working in Ottawa.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's why she was here. She was working, and I can't tell you what she was doing.
Wow.
my own great-grandmother. So that makes me stuck on the Marina thing. It's like, if I can't figure out my own great-grandmother's life, how the heck am I going to figure out Marina's?
Yeah,
but I believe they were very much in the same situation. I think that Marina took her opportunity just like my grandma did. Let's get the hell out of here, because they were being sent back to Russia. I forgot to tell you that.
And I always try to think about things like that, and Marina could have gotten herself, because she's a smart woman. She's not stupid.
I don't think, you know what? I don't think she is. I think Marina Oswald was very shrewd when she was very young. I get that feeling.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
She could have easily figured, okay, I need to get the hell out of here. The best thing to do, meet this defector, marry him, get pregnant by him, and convince him we need to go back to the United States.
Absolutely.
But also get permission to do so from the Russians under the auspice that she would continue to try to spy or get information or
will become an agent in
information
place.
Back. And
yes.
Right. And I think that's where all the ties with the white Russian community in Dallas come from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no way you randomly run it. Oh, hey, Des Moines Shield. No. This is all set up on purpose. listened to one of your podcasts just the other day, and I realized that you had come to the same conclusion as well. I had no clue. I thought you guys might think I'm crazy.
Well, there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Gets a bad rap because they try to twist it now that, he was, he got turned over to the Oswald file, and he was the one supposed to be keeping an eye on Oswald, but he could have easily found where Lee Harvey Oswald was staying and working and go there, but where did Hosty continue to go? To the home of Ruth.
Yes, I think he was watching
Marina. I think he was, and I've even said it or saw it, to where, the FBI used to watch very carefully the wives or husbands of defectors that came back from Russia for this very reason, because apparently it was a big thing going on back then.
They had to watch them, yeah.
Yeah. So it makes total sense that Hosty would have been on Marina, and it would have pissed Oswald enough off, to go to the FBI office and say, hey, leave my wife alone, asshole. Or whatever.
That's a good argument for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Quit bothering my wife.
They weren't harassing him; they were harassing her.
Do you guys think that once Oswald was accused of the shooting of JFK, that therefore the KGB or what have you in Russia, the Soviets probably just backed off from Marina? What do you think?
Oh, in a heartbeat, because the Secret Service scooped her ass up and shoveled her away to the Six Flags for a week in isolation.
Yeah.
And she never spoke to Oswald's mother again, her brother-in-law again, Ruth Payne once, very briefly.
Yeah, Ruth is angry.
You know what? I'll bet you though that between 19, that obviously happened. They had her in lockdown, right? After the assassination. Oh, yeah. But I'll bet you eventually, sometime in the last, 50, however many years it's been, 56. Are we up to 50? What is it? It's more than 56 now, 57 years since the assassination? Jesus. 58. I can't even keep up anymore. Help me out with my math, Rob. I'm blanking. I'm going stupid. You guys help me out.
58.
58.
Well, 58 this year.
58 this year, yeah. There are people out there listening, jumping up and down. You dumbass. 58 years. I'll bet you sometime in the last 58 years, the KGB made contact with her at some point to ask her questions.
Oh, for sure.
Oh,
yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely. But, and whether she continued to be KGB run or ever was KGB run, I don't know.
Well, I think they got on her and cracked her in that stay at the Six Flags Hotel pretty good, and they pretty much came to a deal where, okay, look, we'll let you stay here in America, we'll protect you, but you got to tell us everything, and this is the story we're going to go with. This is a story you need to tell. And, throughout the years, of course, her story has changed here and there. And she said some crazy stuff that never could have happened, like the Nixon thing and among other things, taking the backyard photos and all that stuff.
I'll tell you one of the most interesting and tantalizing and intriguing things I ever read that Marina Oswald said in an official setting was during her grand jury testimony for the Clay Shaw trial. Her Garrison, New Orleans grand jury testimony. At one point in there, Garrison is, and you can go to historymatters.com, Rex Bradford's website, and it's in there under the Garrison thing. All the grand jury transcripts, thankfully, are saved and archived there for us to read. You can go read Marina's. If you haven't, Miss Caroline, I highly recommend it.
No, I didn't know. Wow.
Yeah.
I would have needed that.
At one point, Garrison's asking her about Ruth Payne, and Marina, Rob was talking about over at Six Flags. It wasn't the FBI that had her locked down initially, right? It was the Secret Service. Correct, Rob?
Yeah. Yep.
Is that right? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, she says point blank to Garrison that, you know, when he's asking her about Ruth Payne and this and that, and have you had any contact with her recently? And Marina says, absolutely not. The Secret Service told me not to trust Ruth Payne because she has ties to people who are CIA. And she just plainly straight up told Garrison that. And that's always bogged my mind.
My eyes would have bugged out of my face. I can't wait to read this.
She says, the Secret Service says I shouldn't trust Ruth Payne because she has relatives in CIA. And I thought, wow.
Well, when you think about it in the big scheme of things, it makes sense. Okay, it makes sense that the FBI would have been watching their asses when they came back. And it also makes sense that the CIA would have been very interested in keeping close tabs on the Oswalds upon their return. Because as we know, the CIA and the FBI didn't really get along too well back then. Even though the CIA wasn't supposed to be doing anything domestically.
The notion that J. Edgar Hoover ever, quote unquote, did the bidding of Allen Dulles is absolutely laughable. Laughable. No, right. There was not a whole lot of love lost. Hoover was not happy with the CIA for many, many, many reasons, and we have all the documentation we need to know that.
Yeah, and I think that's why too. You don't have officially Ruth Payne as a employee of the CIA or George de Mohrenschildt officially as a employee of the CIA. These are all off the books contacts, domestic contacts that are being paid probably under the table to do their bidding.
Errands.
And will never officially admit to anything, but it makes sense that as a government entity that we would be worried about or keeping an eye on anybody returning from Russia at that time, especially a defector and his Russian wife who just happened to get out of there so easily. And of course, it wouldn't have been the first time that a woman or a man coming in from the Soviet Union at the time to be a spy of some sort, because I'm sure that when Oswald defected to Russia, they figured this guy is, there's something up with this guy. He's definitely, was sent here. He's doing a job, so they stick Marina on him to watch his ass, and then they send 100%. Him back here, just to keep an eye on what he's doing. Who does he report to? Where does he go? Who does he talk to? What does he do with his time? Where is he working?
And look, I mean, even if it is what we're talking about, they're going to put Marina on him, and she marries him, and suddenly it's a successful thing because they have their quote unquote honeypot agent in place in the U.S. now, right? It's if that was the plan to get Marina here, agent in place, it's just her dumb luck and their dumb luck that they happen to latch on to the guy that would later be framed for the murder of President Kennedy.
I believe that.
And then when they scoop her up and sequester her, what are they going to do? Holy shit! Who saw this coming?
One thing about Marina is her bullshit naivety when it comes to his little boy games and stuff. No, you knew it. Nobody's husband is walking around doing this insane shit.
Oh, like the rifle in the park.
Everything.
Or what was it, Rob? I can't remember where the story that he would sit on the porch and shoot leaves across the yard or something with the rifle.
Yeah.
Out the window, I think it was.
He's firing a 6.5 millimeter rifle in the park at leaves in the trees, and they're not coming in guns blazing, hauling his ass to jail. People don't.
Yeah, is it normal to shoot at Walker and tell your wife? Is it normal to tell your wife you're going to kill Nixon? Like, none of this are little boy games. That's some serious crazy shit, which she would know from being a Russian. That's spy shit. That's weird, like crazy, not normal shit.
No, there was absolutely nothing about their family dynamic and nothing normal about the Oswalds. Nothing, not even remotely.
You got to remember at that time of the Walker shooting, who comes over and to the Oswald's apartment and is digging for information, wants to see the rifle.
George de Mohrenschildt and his wife.
George de Mohrenschildt, yeah.
you have a possible domestic CIA contact with Ruth Payne, and her sister worked for the CIA. It's not a big stretch that they could have reached out to Ruth and had her, report back to them about whatever was going on.
Oh, I think isn't there evidence that Ruth was
Morshield
reported?
could have been working both sides of the fence.
Oh, I feel like he was.
Yeah, I mean, Ruth Payne kept very detailed.
She sent letters
notes.
like regarding Oswald, like, he's residing here. But I feel like there was one letter where we maybe didn't know who the letter was from, but it was very obvious it was from her. Does this ring a bell, Rob? It was on your podcast.
Yeah, I think it was an unsigned letter.
Yeah.
That was attributed to Oswald, but was probably written by her.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. She wanted to learn Russian from Marina and blah. She already knew Russian. She was teaching Russian.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate that one. That one bothers me.
We have various reports, that Marina didn't speak very good English, but that's horseshit. I mean, you have her on video, like a month after the assassination, being interviewed by a newsman in Dallas, and she's speaking just English just fine.
You
and
actually played a clip and proved it. You played a clip on one of your podcasts and proved it.
It's pretty good English. It's pretty good.
My great-grandma was able to train herself to speak English on her own in 6 months. Just so you know, in our house, she only spoke English to the grandkids, but everything else was Russian, so she had the very heavy accent her entire life, but she spoke perfect English.
Right.
Like, right away, by the time I'm born, she's speaking good English.
But not 2 months later.
No. Well, she learned in 6 months, which I think is incredible, And if a woman's living with another woman who's supposed to be helping her, you'd think things would be rolling along.
Right.
It's all not right.
Everything we know is a lie, and that's the problem.
You think she's ever gonna fess up to anything, spill any beans that might help us? I don't either.
I think she's taking it to her grave. No, so the guy that I talked to, he told me a whole bunch of stuff, and he also has not been able to get in touch with her for many years now.
Well, you gotta dish some of that. Come on, you can't just leave us and our dear listeners hanging about this person that you knew someone who knew the Porters, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yes. So I had a 3-hour conversation with a man who held the symposium, lived with Marina and Kenneth for a few months in their home. He also lived with Beverly Oliver or stayed at her place for a little bit.
I was going to say, this isn't the, is this the gangster or the tent preacher? Which one is this?
Or the wooden dummy?
You know what, guys? The conversation was great, and I really respect that this guy was so wonderful to me, but I don't agree with him at all, and I'm just going to be honest with everything. Okay. So some things he told me to keep off the record, but why?
Nobody listens to this show. You can go ahead and say whatever you want. No, Marina's never going to hear it.
I feel that there's no reason for me to keep this shit.
Oh.
So,
well, now be careful. We don't want to do anything potentially libelous.
No, nothing is like that at all.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, nothing like that. So certain things like Marina Oswald believes that Lee Harvey Oswald was having an affair with Sylvia Odeon in Mexico.
In Mexico?
I'm pretty sure. Where
Sylvia Duran?
Sorry, which one?
Sylvia Duran. She was the one in Mexico. She was the...
Whatever one. Sorry, there's so many. There's like Odio. There's so many.
Yeah.
So whichever one is...
Duran was Mexico.
So she believes...
worked at the Cuban consulate. Sylvia Duran did.
Yeah, that rumor's been out there for a while. Yeah, I've heard.
And that it was at a party.
Marina believes it. Anyway, that dude told me Marina believes it. He also, when I brought up, because I wanted to know all of his opinions too before I started saying my stuff, so I asked him about things like Judith Baker, like all the people I don't trust, and
well,
his
apparently it's
thoughts
not
on
cheating if you're in another country. So,
sorry, what was I going to say? Sorry,
I'm shocked that you know that, Rob.
Well, there's various unwritten rules out there, apparently.
I forget what I was saying.
Well, I'm writing that one down. That's all I'm saying.
I forget what I was saying, though. What was it saying?
You said Marina believes that Oswald was having an affair with Sylvia Duran.
She also oddly believes that he could have had an affair with Judith Baker. And I'm like, what? How? Oh, my God. This guy told me that Marina's very susceptible.
Oh, boy, that's the last thing we need is for that chick to get that kind of secondhand verification. Holy shit. It'll be all over social media tomorrow.
No, that's okay. Well, this is why I'm talking about it. It was bullshit.
Oh, wow. You know
or
what
was
I'm
he
saying,
turning
Rob?
tricks in Lafayette Park with dudes, blowing dudes for $5? I mean, come on.
Well, when we talked about
You mean
Dorothy,
Oswald?
No, I think
Yeah, you never heard my episode called I Almost
yeah.
Fucked Lee Harvey Oswald?
Yeah, okay, I do remember that now. Yes, I did.
God bless
So-
the Weisberg Archive.
There's some peaches in there, man.
Ooh, if
So-
only.
This whole symposium thing, I got transcripts from it. It's not too interesting. She just basically plays victim and then keeps saying she's not here to be a victim, which is odd, okay? And she just claims that, she thinks that Oswald was a patsy. She also ignores every question of, do you think he was working for the government? She refuses to answer the question completely, just changes the subject.
Doesn't want to give an opinion on that one way or the other.
No.
I know Oswald's mother firmly believed
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Well, which Oswald's mother are you talking about now, Rob? There are two of them.
Are you guys really into the Harvey and Lee thing? Come on.
Hey, I did last weekend. We had a big power outage. We had some storms roll through and had a power outage, right? Mm-hmm. And like I didn't have a lantern to take in this one room I wanted to sit and read. So the lanterns are scattered all over the rest of the house. But I had the tablet that I have Harvey and Lee on. And I actually read about 100 pages of it, reread 100 pages of it back over the weekend. No, I absolutely do not subscribe to the theory set forth in that book.
Thank God.
That's an amazing piece of research.
It is.
There are some crazy anomalies in that book that bear scrutiny.
Yes.
But, the ultimate conclusion, I don't know. I'm not there. I it's probably one day.
It's impossible to think that they would have two separate families starting with people who look alike. How are they going to know what they're going to look like when they're older? It's just silly.
Ted
But there
Rubin's-
is an assertion in that book, from the Zeigers, who were, I guess, friends with the Oswalds in Russia, that Oswald spoke perfect Russian and Marina spoke perfect English. So, again, it's corroborated. Again.
Isn't that how much is that book right now? I remember last time
Well,
I
it's
looked.
free if I send you the download link.
Sounds good to me, sir.
Okay, all right. I'll shoot it your way after the show.
Sounds great. So yeah, with the symposium thing, I really just kind of backed off because I felt the information was just he didn't want to tell me too much, and everything he told me was very positive. He loves Marina, and he's kissing her fucking ass. So I couldn't get much out of him when you're kissing ass like that, except for the stories he told me not to talk about. Like,
it's
Dorothy.
interesting that she believes the story about Sylvia Duran.
Yeah, he said she's impressionable.
Yeah, I'm not behind the idea that it was actually Oswald in Mexico.
I have no idea.
So if I had to give an opinion now, did he have an affair with Sylvia Duran? I'd say no. Maybe the guy that went down there and pretended to be him banged Sylvia
There
Duran.
you go.
I don't know, but Oswald, no, I don't think so. I don't think that was him down there. I think
he
he was
sex a lot.
I think he was being babysat in Texas while whatever was going on in Mexico City was going on in Mexico City. They just, I believe that to make the frame up work, they needed either Oswald or somebody to go say, I'm Lee Oswald in the vicinity of those particular microphones.
Yeah.
That's what they needed. Either that, I guess there's also, if it was a piggybacked operation, whoever was down there pretending to be Oswald was down there for that reason, but the plotters knew. And then piggyback to that operation to use it in the frame-up. But, Rob, I'm of the opinion. I know we've talked about this before, but right now I'm in that school of thought that it was not Oswald in Mexico City.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I just don't see it, and I think if it was, we'd have proof. From the CIA station there that was watching them, we'd have him on video or audio or photos, something. But
if it had really been him, if it had really been him on those tapes and photos, accurate, they wouldn't have been lost, right?
Yeah, if you pull out a gun in the Soviet embassy and threaten to kill yourself,
and the desk clerk,
they would have hauled him ass somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The desk clerk at the Russian consulate has to take your gun from you. Damn right. Yeah.
Right.
Guys, guess what? I just remembered a kind of hilarious story. When no one was taking my grandpa seriously, remember I told you that he kept going everywhere and they thought he was a drunk?
Yeah.
He was going everywhere with his files and no one, because it's all in Russian. He doesn't speak English. They were just like, get this man out of here. He had to say that if they didn't take him seriously, he was going to jump out the window. See, he pulled crazy too. And it actually worked. That's when someone took his paper. Yeah, no joke. My grandpa threatened that too. just throwing that out there. I forgot. Can I tell you the story?
Well, that's a legitimate act of a desperate man.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think Oswald was very desperate in Mexico City. I mean, he had no reason to be.
It just reminded me. Can I tell you about my grandfather's death? Because it's a little, mysterious.
Yeah.
And I was there when it happened. So in 1982, my grandfather is babysitting me, and he has never been alone before, ever, because that's how scared our family was to ever leave him alone. And my great-grandma, they didn't venture out of the house very often at all. And if they did, they had a couple children, because they had 8 children, so they'd have some of their children with them, and for protection or what have you. And also the RCMP lived across the street from us like almost my whole life. So we had protection for so many years. But there was a bomb put in their mailbox. I was once in my 20s watching a documentary on the Cold War, and all of a sudden a man popped up on the TV, said he was sent to assassinate my grandfather, but decided to defect. Oh my God. So
no shit.
Yeah, so check this out. So my aunt went into labor, my cousin was born, so everyone went to the hospital, and it was such a big adventure. They felt everyone should go, and my great-grandma should go. Everyone left, and I was the baby. They left him to babysit me. Okay, just because people might question this, my grandfather was blind. I need everyone to understand that regardless of him being blind, he was still an artist. He was more functional than most people who can see. So he was okay to babysit me. Anyway, when they got home, I was running around in the front hall screaming, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. And my grandfather was lying there, and he had heart attack and was dead.
Oh, wow.
You know how they do it. Yeah. But it's funny, the one day he's left alone, he dies of a heart attack, guys.
The one day he's left alone.
The one day, guys. So, no, just putting that out there.
Lots of questions still from Marina Oswald, if we could get her to answer in a genuine fashion.
I'd do
for sure.
Anything. I wish that someone close to her who knows secrets would come out if they have to. Who I really want to have talk is, I think Buell Frazier should tell the truth before he passes away.
Agreed.
Well,
very much agreed.
Yeah.
Buell Frazier, he's still of the opinion that there's no way that broke down rifle could have fit in that bag, right?
I love that he sticks to it. Yes.
I mean, he's pretty well on our side of the fence as far as that goes, right, Rob? Or do I have that wrong?
Again, you go back to his HSCA testimony.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's very reluctant to talk to the HSCA. And
he was scared.
You have that little quote from Oswald, Frazier. He said, something to the effect of, I know he had the rifle or hid the rifle, and I was standing there on the steps and I thought, oh my God, I don't want to get pulled into this. Now, either I'm of the assumption that Frazier knew that Oswald brought a rifle to work that day and did not want to get pulled into any of this shit, and came up with the story of curtain rods and that the package was not big enough to hold a rifle, therefore it could not have held a rifle.
Right.
Therefore he would not be anywhere near a rifle, or Oswald bringing a rifle to work and be seen as an accomplice of some sort.
Damn, Rob.
Yeah, again, I don't know. And when you read Buell Frazier's new book that was released this year, he's got a story in there about something that he's never told before publicly, about bumping into someone that had a rifle out in front of the school book depository, and what he watched them put the rifle in the trunk of a car and drive away.
That
day.
So this is just now. What now? Did he not give the Warren Commission and the FBI this information in 1963 and 1964?
No, he said he was too afraid to say.
Oh.
Well,
now that's the kind of horse shit we're getting from Buell Frazier.
Bullshit.
57 years later.
Okay,
what the heck?
Here's the thing.
So, no, in my opinion, I don't think he'll ever tell the truth.
If it's not true, listen, if it's not true, it is by definition bullshit. But if it is true and he waited until 2021 to reveal it, that in and of itself is bullshit as well. Let me just go ahead and say that.
There's no thought in your guys' minds that he would be scared and maybe revealing it because he's close to dying?
No, I got to throw a flag.
Okay.
So here's the exact quote from Frazier.
Really?
Okay.
All right. He's being interviewed by Moriarty from the HSCA. Frazier says, no, I didn't know that he'd been caught, but I will tell you this. I know that he hid the rifle. And Moriarty goes, mm-hmm. Frazier said he did. And I said to myself, oh, my God, that was the first thing right there on the steps. I also knew that I didn't want to get pulled in.
Carrying, if you know somebody's got a rifle in a paper bag, how do you know they hid it?
Well, this is a transcript from an audio taped interview.
I'm just saying, it sounds like bullshit to me.
My assumption is that he didn't say that he knew that he hid the rifle. What if Frazier said, I knew that he had the rifle? That changes the entire
you go
scope of things.
There you go. The court reporter.
Yes.
Here's something different. Yeah.
And, another note from the HSCA investigators.
That's a damn good point, Rob.
Is a note in his personal notebook. He says, Frazier continues to procrastinate, now wants to meet in lawyer's office next Friday. Ultimately, make appointment for Friday at 1 to 2 p.m., but that's not definite. Definite resistance, but reason not apparent. Will require another call tomorrow at 10 o'clock to see if my lawyer says okay per Frazier. Now, this is them trying to track his ass down so they can interview him for the HSCA. And he says that he's procrastinating, he's very reluctant, definite resistance, reason not that apparent.
What now could this be, let's assume that his revelation about the other man with the rifle is true. Could this be, oh, shit, are they going to want to know, am I going to tell him that? Is it going to come out now? Is he scared? That's me being, devil's advocate there. His story
for all these years has been he stood on the steps, which we have physical photographic proof of.
Exactly.
After the assassination, he stood there dumbfounded. Okay, he has said in the past that he stood on the steps and they figured, well, I'm kind of hungry. I'm going to go inside and go down to the basement and eat my lunch. Okay, he said that. He's also said that I've stood on the steps and I watched Lee Harvey Oswald come up from the side of the building on Houston Street, walk down to Main Street and hang a left, and I lost sight of him. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, he said that before. And now he's changing it to he was on the steps But he came off the steps, I guess, down to the sidewalk at some point and bumped into a guy that had a rifle in front of the schoolbook depository, and he saw him put it in the trunk of a car right in front of the schoolbook depository.
I have not read the book.
Which we have no photographic proof of. No other witnesses say this. It sounds like a horse shit story.
Maybe Wesley did it.
I haven't read the book, right? And I know he's done an interview or two here and there, audio-wise or whatever, and I just really haven't paid any attention to Bill Wesley Frazier and the release of his book. But, you know, this is kind of blowing my mind right now that suddenly, oh, yeah, and there was that other fella that had that rifle. You know, come on, dude. Now you wait?
Yeah, I mean, it's very not believable.
It's very not believable.
And I don't know what.
It smells of.
Maybe someone told him he needed to add something new to sell.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Or like.
Now, look, January 5th of this year, okay? I reached out to Mr. Frazier, and I said, and this is on Facebook Messenger, I said, hello, Mr. Frazier. My name's Rob Clark, host of the Lone Gunman Podcast, a show currently at 178 episodes, all about different aspects of the assassination. To date, over 350,000 downloads, averaging 10,000 listens a month. I tell you this not to toot my own horn, but to encourage you to join me for a chat about your book. If you want to reach the audience you're aiming for to buy your book, this is the show you want to come on to promote it. I've been researching the case for 30 years. I know the case front to back, and I think we could have a great conversation about it. Let me know if you're interested, and we can set something up. Thank you for the consideration. Okay? Now, here's what he says. Hi, Rob. Can you please reach out to my son, also named Rob? He coordinates things like this for me. His number is blah, 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 blah. Okay?
Well, that was a nice reply.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Did the son tell you to go F yourself?
No, I
Hell, I got a boy named Rob, too. Hit him up there. We'll get together and chat.
But there's a reason that this interview never took place. And it's because I'm sure they figured out that I would ask the hard questions. Yeah. And
I would bet money.
Call him on his bullshit.
I would bet a 6-pack of Coke Zero, my man Rob, that he was probably warned by somebody. You know,
right.
Look, this guy said on his podcast before he thinks some of your stories bullshit. Yeah, he was probably warned off of you, I'd say.
Yes.
Yeah.
He probably listened to a couple episodes too, and then was scared
the
off
son might have, because you've got at least one episode with Bill Frazier's name in the title in your archive, and I'm sure they listened to that. And if I remember the timbre and tone of that interview, it was critical of Mr. Frazier. It certainly wasn't accepting of everything he'd ever said. Like you say, you ask tough questions, and I don't think they wanted to go there.
I remember the episode very well. You were basically begging for, rationally begging for some real answers. So you didn't, you said your piece and what you believe, but you also were like, this needs to come out.
I've done the same thing with Marina.
Every tough question Rob asks.
I put that Marina episode out. Said, please come out. Say
or
your
the one
truth.
Even asking for June. I think you said, June, where are you, or something. It's titled. Or Junie, we need you.
Every question you've asked, Rob, is a legitimate question. And I've got a friend. We have a mutual friend who is a very good friend of Mr. Frazier's. And I trust this person's judgment. And they tell me from where they sit, and they know him pretty well. It seems absolutely sincere, but it doesn't change. It doesn't answer the questions that you've asked that we need to clear up.
I think I know who you're talking about, and I've got legitimate questions that need to be answered. And, that person doesn't like me anymore based on the fact that I want to question Frazier on what he wants to say, and that's fine. That's all fine and dandy, but at some point you got to get to the truth. It's all fine and good to say, well, I'm friends with so-and-so. Well, that's great. Well, I want the truth about what happened that day. You can say you do, but if you want to get to the question, you have to ask the hard questions from the people that were actually there and involved in it. And there's not too many of them left. that were willing to talk about anything other than Frazier.
And you got to get a good answer to those tough questions, you know?
Right. You better have one. Why did 5 of your coworkers say you drove him to work every day, sir?
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, here, let me play you the audio from this dude, Roy Lewis. Let me play this audio for you, sir. It says you always park on Houston Street back there. It says you always gave him a ride to work every day. Every day. That's what the man said. So what say you, sir?
Yeah, really.
You know?
Oh, I'm hip, dude. I'm with you.
So you give the guy a ride to work, to and from work every day, but you don't know him. You're not friends with him. You never talked about anything. Bullshit.
So if he
Rob's
was
getting fired up now, guys. Uh-oh.
Yeah, Lee, it's starting to really rain out there today.
Yeah.
Looks like it's going to be a thunder boomer. Yeah.
How the kids doing?
Yeah. I mean, come on.
Come on,
I mean, these
man.
guys were young guys, same age, or roughly close to the same age. But you have Lee Oswald, who's literally at that point been around the world. He's been to Japan, he's been to Russia, he's been to England, Europe, Finland. I mean, he's done all kinds of shit. He's been in the military, but you don't want to talk to him about any of that. You're not fascinated by any of that. You don't want to, you know. And it's not like Lee wouldn't have been bragging about to this young kid. Oh yeah, I've been to Russia. I've been here. Done this, done that. Oh really? Wow. Tell me about that. You know. Bullshit. Sorry, I call bullshit.
Rob declares shenanigans. Well,
Yes.
yeah, it would be nice if Mr. Frazier would acquiesce and appear on the Lone Gunman podcast and answer some of these tough questions. I do agree.
But now that the book is in print and it's out there, and that's his final truth, then I seriously doubt it's ever going to happen. But you know, it's disappointing, man. It's disappointing.
Very disappointing. Disappointing that we didn't.
And I
hear-
understand, you know, if he wants to protect his family and all that, I get that. But at some point, you know, the truth needs to come out, regardless of who it hurts.
Amen
You know-
to that.
Maybe one day it actually will, because look at my great-grandparents defected in 1945, and I'm about 2 years away from actually I'm in the process of making a documentary, so showing what really took place. And the only reason I'm able to do that is because none of the family, they wanted to die with it, bury everything. And
Yeah.
I just feel like this is too big of a story to bury. Like, it's interesting, and it means a lot to me. So, yeah, I'm not going to my grave like this. No way.
And there are not too many people left who can shed light on what really happened. Very few.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yep.
Ruth Payne, Marina Oswald.
Marina.
Yeah, Marina, you know,
Frazier.
Frazier certainly can shed a little. I could think of a man living in a nursing home in Florida named William Seymour who could probably shed a little light on things. Who else? You know, who else is left?
Well, like I said, and too, I think I told you this when I did it, Doug, but I think that I found Lauren Hall's son,
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
and I reached out to him, and this is what I said. I said, "Hey, Lauren."
Was it Lauren
Not to bother
Jr.
you.
or Michael?
Yeah, Lauren Jr. I said, not to bother you out of left field, but the name in reference to KC made me wonder if your dad was the infamous Lauren Hall Sr., the famous anti-Castro mercenary that was once in a Cuban prison with Santo Traficante with possible ties to the Kennedy assassination. I do a podcast called The Lone Gunman, all about different aspects of the JFK assassination. I've been researching the case for 30 years. I've spoken to Felipe Hemming about his dad's activities in the early 60s. I was wondering if yours ever told you anything about all the stuff he got caught up in, like the accusations of him being involved.
Yeah.
The Garrison investigation, the HSCA investigation, or his buddies, like Lawrence Howard. Again, sorry to bother you. I just had to ask. He is one of my favorites to read and talk about. His interviews are fascinating.
I love the way you just glossed right over with that. He's one of my favorites to read and study. You just glossed right over. He's one of my prime fucking suspects.
Right.
That was awesome.
So, I mean, but
He is so interesting, though.
Yeah, he's never read my message, so it is what it is.
Really? Maybe one day he will.
It might have went into the spam folder.
Yeah.
It's probably in his spam folder, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy was like the prototype Walter White, too, you know?
Yeah.
You know who I spoke to in 2015 or 16?
Who's that?
St. John Hunt.
Interesting guy. Interesting guy. I think his father's confession was a lot of mud in the water. It was a lot of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's what we were talking about, and I'm pretty sure. So what year? Because why were we on the phone in 2015, 16? His dad must have passed away by then.
Oh yeah.
Anyhow, we were going over that. He was sticking to his guns about all that. So yeah, it was just sort of. I think he was trying to pick me up.
You know,
he was flirting.
He probably was.
I'm just being honest, guys, because the conversation wasn't where I wanted it to go. It was more like, so how are you doing? And what do you know, that kind of thing.
Hey, I want to ask about your dad. How you doing? Yeah. Poor guy. Bless his heart. But yeah, you know, I would, I can't remember who I was talking to who told me this. It might have been Bill Simpich, might have been Larry Hancock, might have been one of those guys that said that maybe when Hunt did that on his deathbed, he was trying to like give his kid a leg up. Like he was, okay, I'm gonna do this, and you take it and sell it, make a book, and you know, sort of thing.
Wow.
Like, okay, I'll give him some crazy bullshit, and then you can take these tapes and you can sell him a book, a movie, or something. And maybe it'll help you out in the future. You know,
Doug,
kind of thing.
So smart.
Oh, it wasn't my thinking. It may have been. It was definitely somebody else, but it's a damn good idea.
Someone smart.
I agree with the
It may
analysis.
have been mine.
Probably was Rob. Yeah. It's entirely possible it was. I don't know why I never attribute the smart things people tell me to Rob. I don't understand why. When in actuality, it's probably Rob that said it. You know. So
it probably was.
May have.
He's ubiquitous in my studies, though. He's always around.
One of my friends recently said to me when I was going over all this work that I had done with them, and they looked at me and said something so fucking crazy, but it actually made sense. They said, what if Marina, when at the dance or the second meeting, she poisoned him in some way, so she knew he would be in the hospital, therefore she could then attend to him.
What was he in the hospital for?
That's pretty good. Small little window of possibility there.
Now, see, that's some of that real life, by God, espionage type stuff right there. You know.
Hey, well, yeah, it happens. Right?
What was he in the hospital for?
An earache.
An ear, yeah, drop something in his
allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
That turned into having his adenoids removed, which in the Soviet Russia, this is all being paid for. And Marina couldn't get dental work, but Oswald had dental work paid for. I find it mind-blowing.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah. It's just nothing makes sense.
But you know what? That's a fun bit of speculation there. Like maybe she put something in his vodka and and then when he wakes up in the hospital, oh, my angel's here. She must love me, you know.
You know what? I'm going to do some investigating on what type of poison or something could attack the adenoids. I'm going to look it up. I'm going to do some serious research.
Because she had access to pharmaceuticals, being a pharmacist, right?
Oh my goodness, Rob!
Boom.
Yeah. Oh wow! We just came up with a whole crazy. Well, my friend came up with this whole crazy thing.
See there? Yeah, that's informed speculation. And now what you do is you go out and you look around and you eliminate it as impossible, or you don't. Hey, that's how this works, guys. Absolutely. Hey, I want to try to eliminate something that may be impossible. What do you guys think? You want to help me out?
Sounds good.
Yes.
All right. I want to talk about, we're going to start at Operation Mongoose. Both of you guys are familiar with Operation Mongoose, correct?
Can't get enough of it.
All right. And I want to talk about what we have called the consensus view of CIA primacy. I did not. Now that wasn't my idea. I didn't call it that. I heard it. I heard it called that. but I have referred to it as
that
such
is the
ever
belief
since.
that the CIA was behind everything, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Yes.
The consensus view of CIA primacy. Now, it all goes back to give me some names. First, Miss Caroline, just give me a few names of individuals that are mostly thought, to have had something to do with the plot to murder JFK. What names come to mind when the phrase, the consensus view of CIA primacy? Just a few.
Well, I would start at James Angleton.
Yeah, Angleton.
Lansdale. Thanks, Doug.
Rob, who comes to mind?
Dulles.
Alan
Harvey.
Dulles. Bill Harvey. There you go.
Well, obviously, this is a minor one, I think, but George Bush Sr. obviously had a connection with the Mohrenschilds, so there's something there.
Well, we can agree to disagree with that, with the George Bush.
Oh.
But,
Well, people who believe that George Bush was
oh, yeah,
involved
that
in
he
the
definitely
CIA
fits
that
in
early.
because of the Bay of Pigs, Zapata oil boat bullshit that we all know is just wrong. But now, you guys, you named the three names. You named the three names between you. And we're going to focus on these three names for a minute. Help me out. Helms, Harvey, and Miss Caroline said it, Ed Lansdale. Now, Helms, of course, as you guys know, he was the chief of the CIA Plans Directorate, which included all covert and black operations during the Kennedy administration. And he succeeded John McCone as director of Central Intelligence. And he served in that capacity right through the Watergate scandal, and into the early 70s. William Harvey, definitely a favorite as far as suspects to have been involved in the assassination, even with folks who are not 100% behind the consensus view of CIA primacy, which is Dulles was the mastermind and everybody worked for him, right? Upper echelon, upper management, CIA guys pulled it off at the behest of Alan Dulles. That's where that whole thing goes. And, of course, William Harvey, he was the head of CIA's Task Force W, right? Which was part of Operation Mongoose. He was the man who spearheaded phase 2, at least, phases 2 and 3, I believe. Is that right, Rob, of the CIA Mafia Castro assassination plots?
Yes.
He famously loathed the Kennedys, and he's implicated by many a researcher. Of all of the guys that were CIA, as far as having pre-knowledge of the assassination plot and possibly even active in it, there's only the two for me are David Morales and William Harvey, right? Now, that's not to say that I'm 100% sold on their participation in the murder plot. It's just that of the people I've seen, those are the two most likely in my mind, knowing who they were connected to and what they were connected to, right? And the people who we can then connect to the most likely Dealey Plaza hit team suspects, and there's 1 or 2 degrees of separation. Bill Harvey and David Morales are most likely to be those guys to me, so I don't discount it. And, he was very close to Mafia guy John Rosselli. They were tight. John Rosselli, in turn, was close with John Martino, right, who was basically, moving around anti-Castro operations that were CIA's. Look at Operation Tilt. I mean, Operation Tilt was a CIA getting a con job, right? And, Harvey is considered to be such a likely suspect that his still classified CIA travel records are even now, I believe, the subject of a lawsuit by none other than Jefferson Morley and David Talbot, I believe.
What are in those?
Well, they're not going to find what they think they're going to find, which is a trip from Rome to Dallas, right? Right, Rob? They're not going to find that.
No.
That didn't happen. But I think that's what basically they're looking for. If they could corroborate that Mark Wyatt story that Harvey flew from Rome to Dallas, which didn't happen because there was no Rome to Dallas flight. There was neither a direct flight from Rome to Dallas nor an airliner on the planet Earth being used for commercial purposes that would actually make that trip. But we did all the research, me and Larry Hancock, and just that didn't happen. I think that's what they're looking for. But now, again, to my mind, Harvey is a viable suspect. Absolutely 100%. I admit that. But not so much to me, Ed Lansdale.
I think his story's been built up.
I do too. I do too. I think, he was implicated mostly by L. Fletcher Prouty. And this is Air Force General Ed Lansdale. And we're talking about that, the whole thing about him being in Dealey Plaza. That's one thing.
The famous picture, yeah.
The three tramps photo identified by, allegedly, Prouty and General Victor Brute Krulak. And you know what, Rob? I actually did find a copy of the letter, and it is signed by Victor Krulak. You know it?
Right.
Yeah. This is the, toward the bottom. I just want to read this little bit of the March 15th, 1985 letter. It's a response from Victor Krulak to Prouty regarding this photo, who Prouty insists is Ed Lansdale in Dealey Plaza. And this is how the thing reads. It says, as to photo number 1, and this is Krulak writing, that is indeed a picture of Ed Lansdale. The haircut, the stoop, the twisted left hand, the large class ring. It's Lansdale. What in the world was he doing there? Has anyone ever asked him? And who was the photographer? Why did he take the pictures? What did he do then? I have examined my own records and find no clue that would help. Suffice to say, it is a fascinating proposition. And that's what Mr. Krulak wrote then. Well, I'll say there is a signature of Victor Krulak, right? And the body of this letter that this signature is attached to, that Prouty allegedly received, does indeed read that way. But I have no way of authenticating that. I know some people say, well, I've seen the letter. Well, I have too. But you didn't see him sign it, right? That's important because of what Brute Krulak later told researcher Harold Livingston in 1991 is why that's important. I want to read something to you guys here. This is from Jefferson Morley's website. This is an article that Jefferson Morley wrote, jfkfacts.org, on July 15th of 2015. New records surface on General Lansdale and Cuba. It says the National Declassification Center announced yesterday, which would have been March 14th, the release of long classified records on General Edward Lansdale and Cuba that may help complete the historical record of the end of the Kennedy administration. It says, in late 1961, President Kennedy put Lansdale in charge of Operation Mongoose, his administration's secret effort to overthrow Fidel Castro's government in Cuba. And indeed, he was put there by the Kennedys, not the Central Intelligence Agency. That's very important. That's very, very, very important.
That's very important.
It says Mongoose was a failure, and Lansdale was relieved of his duties in late 1962. The late Colonel Fletcher Prouty, briefing officer for the Secretary of Defense 1960 and 61, claimed that Lansdale was in Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963. Jefferson Morley writes this, guys. The man Prouty claims was Lansdale can only be seen from behind. A colleague of Lansdale's, General Victor Krulak, allegedly said the man's hand, gait, and ring resemble those of Lansdale. Morley concludes, I am not aware of any evidence that corroborates Prouty and Krulak's claim. Conspiracy theories aside, Lansdale played a leading role in JFK's Cuba policy for a year. His plans may shed light on the struggle for power over Cuba policy that continued until the day JFK died. Now, that was just for a little background I wanted to give you guys. Now, Rob, Caroline, at this point in my studies after all these years, Ed Lansdale in Dealey Plaza. I just don't buy it. What say you guys?
I don't believe it at all. Nope.
Rob?
Nope.
No.
That's a hard no.
Going by a hand tilted in a ring is ridiculous, especially during that time when everyone dressed similar.
Well, you know, there's so much that belays this, and I refer to it as conspiracy buff fluff. And if you don't know,
I call it disinformation is what I use.
I call it conspiracy buff fluff. And for those who don't know what a fluffer is, Google it, and you'll figure out what I'm saying about this kind of thing. But again, and you know something, and here's another thing. And like I said, I mean, I've read people write. Look, I've seen the letter. You know, I've seen the letter. I have too. I didn't see him write it. You know. And Rob, you were the one that found the audio with Harold Livingston, right? Yes. As far as the Lansdale in Dealey Plaza in 1991 thing, General Krulak had ample opportunity to back up Prouty's assertions, but he didn't do it. All right? I want to play again a little bit, guys, of this audio interview of General Victor Krulak by JFK assassination researcher and author. Yes, sir.
Courtesy of Bart Camp. By the way.
Oh, Bart found this.
Yeah, Bart sent it to me.
Now, this was, thank you, Bart. Man, Bart is always helping us out. Well, I apologize for the, it wasn't good. I'm sure Mr. Livingston was recording over the phone, and it was in 1991, so technology is not what it is today, so there's a little buzz in the audio. We actually played this before, Rob, on Quick Hits 16, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. But this is the General Victor Krulak, all right, talking to Harold Livingston about Fletcher Prouty and Ed Lansdale in 1991. Check it out.
Have none. Now, of course, you, being a friend of Prouty's, you're well acquainted with his viewpoint about
conspiracy.
About General, what the hell was his name?
Lansdale?
Lansdale.
How about, is it Conane? I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Conane, yes. He was a fellow who wore an Army uniform, a CIA contact.
Was that true also of Lansdale?
Well, no, because Lansdale was, as Prouty will tell you, was an Air Force officer.
Yeah. Do you give any credibility to the possibility that either of them might have been involved in a plot or been at Dealey Plaza on the day of the murder?
No, I have the remotest knowledge of that. The only things that I've ever heard is what Prouty has told me.
Yeah. How credible do you feel he is in terms of he worked closely with you, I understand.
Who, Prouty?
Yeah.
Yes.
But did you read his book, The Secret Team?
No.
Do you consider yourself still friendly towards him?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because he does idolize you, you know. I mean, he...
absolutely. I regard him as sound, solid, respectable, and honorable.
Yeah. He says that in some of the photographs taken in Dealey Plaza just after the murder, in the background, he believes that he sees Lansdale.
Yes, he has told me that.
Yeah.
I couldn't corroborate it because I don't have any independent information or evidence.
Yeah.
Everything I know about that, I heard from Fletcher. Well, what about this picture? This is 6 years after he wrote the letter. I can't corroborate that.
I think Fletcher
a little interesting there, isn't it?
Either was a disinformation agent, or he wanted to be so involved in this that he put himself in places and involved himself in areas that he didn't truly know about.
What I want you guys to do now is I want you to try to put yourselves, Miss Caroline, Mr. Rob, in 1963. I want you to try your best to put yourself in 1963 as an intelligence professional. And I want you to think about workplace dynamics. All right? Both of you guys are in your mid-late 40s, right? Yeah. You've worked. You've had jobs. You know how dynamics are in the workplace, right? Yes. You can work with this guy. You can't work with this guy, right?
Yes.
And I can work with that person. I can't work with that person. We have a special project. I don't want that person on my team, right? Maybe they're not as good. You know how this works. I want you to, what I'm getting at is we're going to apply some real life, common sense, horse sense to this whole thing. And we're going to think about professional and personal dynamics, workplace dynamics, okay? And when you're putting yourself in that place, you're thinking of it from that point of view, and you're in that place, intelligence, professional, 1963. I want you to think about this plot that we think happened to murder the President of the United States. I want you to think about how serious of a proposition that was. And I want you to think about how serious of an operation that was and how black and covert of an operation that was when I read from the following interview summary from the church committee. All right?
Okay.
Think about this stuff. I'm going to read to you from this very interesting document. Have you guys ever heard the name, Rob, Miss Caroline, George Bowles Mcmanus?
No.
Nope.
George Bowles Mcmanus retired from the CIA in 1970 as a senior administrator after 23 years with the agency and was a special assistant to Director John McCone during the Kennedy years and was appointed a special aide to Richard Helms for the Cuba operations and was down and dirty with CIA's Operation Mongoose contingent, Task Force W. Okay?
Wow.
All right, this is who this guy was. What's interesting about this deposition is what he has to say about Lansdale and Helms and Harvey and the personal and professional dynamic between these individuals, okay? I'm going to read this. This is this part here. Mcmanus on being Helms' assistant for Cuba operations. Says, as Helms' assistant for Cuban activities, Mcmanus was in daily contact with both Helms and Harvey. Oh, excuse me. Let me go back here and give you the all of this. It's originator SSCIA. That is the church committee from Paul Wallach to Fritz Schwartz. The date is July 22nd, 1975. It's a 13-page summary. Subjects operation.
You got that riff number?
I do. You want it? It's
No, I'm just fucking.
Oh, okay. How about I give the record number? Wait, I'll do this. 157-100-14-1021. I'm going to leave the last digit off so Mr. Kelly have to do a little bit of work. There we go. Now, back over here. As Helms' assistant for Cuban activities, Mcmanus was in daily contact with both Helms and Harvey. Moreover, he often assisted Task Force W in responding to, and indeed often implementing, Lansdale's plethora of requests. Soon after the January 19th meeting, Harvey was brought in as director of the Cuban task force. Mcmanus understood that part of his job was to keep track of Harvey, who was, quote, quite an independent fellow and, quote, extremely not forthcoming with information. Harvey was a hard-nosed, badass covert ops guy. You would expect him to be that way, right? Mcmanus explained that Helms shared his feeling that we have to get off our asses and get moving on Cuba. However, Helms, as deputy director of plans, had lots of other important concerns. Mcmanus prepared a weekly report for Helms wherein he summarized intelligence information and the operational work of Task Force W. Apparently, the operational section was prepared by Harvey and simply reviewed by Mcmanus prior to transmittal to Helms. Helms, in turn, reviewed the draft report. The final version was eventually disseminated to 7 recipients: McCone, Lansdale, inter alia, Defense, and the White House. This is the interesting part here. Mcmanus on General Lansdale. Mcmanus described Lansdale as a kook, a wild man, just plain crazy. He told us that Lansdale was similarly viewed by most everyone at the agency. Unfortunately, Lansdale was, quote, 100% sponsored by the Kennedys. And, quote, as good soldiers, the CIA had to cooperate with him. Mcmanus vividly recounted Lansdale's forays into the sabotage arena. He presented his initial laundry list of Cuban action proposals in early 1962. Of course, he expected immediate CIA action on his requests. In McManus's words, the CIA was, quote, required to assist Lansdale in his unrealistic, half-baked, and half-assed schemes. McManus added that with every new dawn, a Lansdale courier bearing yet another, quote, half-baked, half-assed scheme would arrive at Task Force W's door. McManus succinctly painted a picture of the agency's, and more specifically Harvey's, resentment of Lansdale. Lansdale, with the CIA, quote, as his troops and horses, was ready to do battle, albeit indirectly, with the Castro regime. McManus stressed that Lansdale's projects, get this, simply gave the impression of movement. Although the frenzy of activity gave a whirlwind impression to those above, it was without substance. McManus noted some higher-ups regarded Lansdale as a mystic, a visionary. He's referring to the Kennedys. They must have believed that despite Lansdale's insane ideas, McManus said, he had some sort of power to accomplish crazy results, or those two wouldn't have kept him. Neither Helms nor McManus had daily contact with Lansdale. As mentioned above, Lansdale often communicated directly with Harvey, who also held Lansdale in extreme contempt. That is parenthetically. McManus added that Task Force W was a new and unusual concept and not really of the agency organization. Now, at first, guys, when I first read this, I thought, quote, McManus was a pseudonym for Samuel Halpern, who was one of Helms's chief deputies. You know, at one point, I was reading a deposition, a church committee deposition by someone named Arnold Silver, who I later found out was actually Tony Forza, who was David Morales' number 2 guy. So they use aliases. Now, I read this McManus thing, and I actually called Bill Simpich on the phone going home the other day and said, hey, is this guy, is McManus, could be a pseudonym for Halpern, because his sentiments absolutely mirrored Halpern's take in an internal CIA history that I read in Michael Best's That One Archive, as far as what these people thought of Ed Lansdale as a covert action, covert operations professional. Sam Halpern actually makes the point in this CIA history at That One Archive that they needed to deal with Lansdale on a political basis, not a professional basis. And you know what that means, right, Rob? Just placate the fucker, because in 4 years after the next election, he ain't going to be here.
Right.
Now, my question to you guys. What we were talking about, workplace dynamics, professional respect that we have for our co-workers, right? Now, are we to believe that these covert spies, these serious men, these covert action black op specialists, all right, these guys had zero professional respect. Bill Harvey had zero professional respect for Ed Lansdale. Zero. So would he engage? Would he trust him? Would Bill Harvey, if he were involved in a plot to murder the President of the United States, acquiesce to that plot being designed and run as an intelligence operation by a man whom he had absolutely zero professional respect for?
Well, with these facts, if these are facts, then then holy shit.
Rob,
Lansdale's just gone then.
what say you?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, when you apply it to, like, you know, like you say, your normal workplace, it's the type of guy that maybe your boss, maybe it's the new guy that your boss just hired who, you know, is your boss's guy, but you've been there maybe 10 years. Maybe you were there before your boss got put into place. And maybe, you know, you might have this feeling that something just is not right about this guy. Like, he probably runs and tells the boss everything. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you don't fully trust a guy.
Yeah, this happens in all sorts of workplaces. So in this situation, can you imagine
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
the seriousness? Yeah.
It
Sorry.
would,
Yeah, so, you know, you would maybe include him on some mundane things that really doesn't mean one thing too much or the other. But,
yeah.
you know, as far as the secret, covert stuff that absolutely cannot get fucked up, there's no way that you're going to include this guy in your plans.
There's no way.
Well,
And let's say another one of your coworkers comes to you, right? And they say, look, our boss, okay, your boss brings in this guy who's, right? The Kennedys are bringing in Lansdale. Your boss brings in this new guy, like Rob says, right? Well, you and your coworker, you really hate your boss, right? So you're conspiring to get him fired.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you going to go to his new golden boy and say, hey, can you help us get your benefactor fired?
No.
No, you're not going to do that. You're not going to let him anywhere near your plans. Harvey and Helms, if Bill Harvey was involved, then this is what eventually, if they're going to have to get the crowd that is 100% on board with Ed Lansdale and Dealey Plaza. Alan Dulles was the puppet master of the whole thing. Bill Harvey and David Atlee Phillips, and with the CIA primacy crowd that they're going to have to come to terms with. I think the reality of the situation is that if Bill Harvey was involved in a plot to murder John Kennedy, that Ed Lansdale was not. Period.
Right.
Got you.
You can't have both, because Bill Harvey could not fucking stand the sight of Ed Lansdale. This is only one example.
Unless
this is only one example. What's that?
Unless they had super secret plans to make this guy a backup scapegoat for something in case everything went to shit.
Bam! I was going to say that, dude. Sorry.
Now, that's not saying that Ed Lansdale will be dumb enough to walk in Dealey Plaza, half an hour after the assassination, knowing he's going to get caught on probably video, probably photo, walk around in his suit with his ring on, and
smoking a cigarette,
walk past these alleged assassins, on the street in front of the school book depository, and give him a wink and a nod, like, good job, boys.
Now, that's an intriguing concept. That, if Harvey was one of these guys that helped manipulate these militants that were in and around Florida and the Deep South in the U.S. and certainly operating in the Caribbean, if he was one of these guys, you're right. That's pretty genius. If you could make it look like the Kennedy's golden Cuba boy did it, Mr. Lansdale,
right.
or at least implicate him.
I mean,
certainly,
they might have other pictures that we don't even know about, and I've never seen of, a better picture that's makes it pretty certain that it's Ed Lansdale and Dealey Plaza.
It's like you said, if that was really him,
back of some guy's head.
Yeah, if that was really, it's like the Oswald thing. If that was really him, we'd have good pictures of it.
This just also shows that Prouty is full of shit all the time.
Well, have you ever now, Miss Caroline, that notion there, what you just said. Have you ever heard the allegation or the assertion that Alan Dulles got him his got him his generalship, his star?
Not that I can remember anymore. It's been about 10 years since I used to like truly believe in Fletcher Prouty. So I used to take in all his interviews, everything. But Rob's podcast turned me off.
Well, you know, that was one of his big assertions, right? That Alan Dulles actually went to the Air Force and got Lansdale his promotion.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is total horseshit.
Yeah.
And that is another Prouty theme that was projected
also,
on the Lansdale.
Lansdale retired a month before the Kennedy assassination.
Right.
Officially.
I didn't know that.
From his position.
October.
Therefore, everything that Prouty contends Lansdale was involved in after that is horseshit.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Well, you know, the JFK Presidential Library possesses primary resource documentation that the whole thing about Alan Dulles getting him his promotion to general is categorically untrue. It's complete fiction. Are you familiar with Roswell Gilpatrick?
Not myself, no.
He was Undersecretary of Defense under John Kennedy from 1961 and served through January of 64. He was a childhood friend of Nelson Rockefeller, Undersecretary of the Air Force in 51 and 53 with Truman, but served as Deputy Secretary of Defense in 1961 for Kennedy. Now, Miss Caroline and listeners, if you go to the JFK Presidential Library and Museum website, jfklibrary.org, in the archives, click archives, scroll down, click oral history interviews, scroll down to Gilpatrick Roswell, JFK number 1, 5570. Click that.
Okay.
Go to page 9. Mr. Gilpatrick interviewed by one Dennis O'Brien. I want to share this just so everybody knows, so everybody hears it. I'm going to try to get this out about 2 times a year because I get tired of reading that bullshit online because it's like once you know, you're like, people are still saying that bullshit and selling that bullshit, and that's what it is. Listen to this. Now, he's being interviewed by an individual named Dennis O'Brien. O'Brien says, well, I thought today we'd get through some of the foreign policy problems and then at a future time come back to some of the organizational problems. Do you have someone at this time that's briefing you and Secretary McNamara within the department on Southeast Asia, particularly Laos and Vietnam? Gilpatrick, again, Deputy Secretary of Defense for John F. Kennedy, appointed by John F. Kennedy and served John F. Kennedy every day that John F. Kennedy was president. Gilpatrick, yes. I inherited from my predecessor, Jim Douglas, a man who was then an Air Force colonel, Major Edward Lansdale, and he was an unusual military type in that he was completely uninhibited in dealing with politicians and civilians. May explain a little bit why Harvey resented him so much, right?
Wow.
That was my interjection.
Wow.
But he says, and apparently he set out on his own to educate the new team. But since he was in my office, the office of the Deputy Secretary of Defense, I had the most contact with him. And within a matter of weeks, I'd been asked by the president to head up a task force, the first task force on Vietnam, and I made Lansdale my project officer. So he was the one on the military side. O'Brien, well, Lansdale's very soon in consideration for an appointment as ambassador, isn't he? Isn't he considered after Eldridge Dubrow goes? Gilpatrick, I think so. He was not in favor when I got there during my period with either the military or with the State Department. He was in the doghouse with both, and I was convinced they were wrong. I was convinced he was not a wheeler-dealer. He was not an irresponsible swashbuckler. And I finally succeeded in getting him his star as a general. Very difficult. The Air Force didn't want to give him a generalship, and I felt it was essential to give him the stature that he needed. All right? He said, I finally succeeded. Not Alan Dulles finally succeeded in getting him his star. Very difficult. Not Alan Dulles felt it was essential to give him the stature that he needed. It's not what the man said on the record in 1970. He didn't say Alan Dulles. He said I. He said me. Wow. He said Roswell Gilpatrick. To me, again, that is primary resource documentation. First person. A first-person account of who lobbied the Air Force for General Lansdale's star. And it wasn't Allen Dulles. Just like it wasn't, it wasn't George W. Bush and Zapata Oil in the Bay of Pigs, like Prouty told Harold Weisberg in that letter in 1989.
And all those silly connections with the boat name of Barbara and all this ridiculousness.
Yeah, she didn't even have a damn middle name, and all.
Everything was so ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, that was what I wanted to bring to you guys. I wanted to bring to you guys a little more about the dynamic between some real viable assassination plot suspects like Bill Harvey and Ed Lansdale. And we got to think about it in those terms. They couldn't stand that dude. They didn't want to work with him on a plot to overthrow Castro. Why would they work with him on a plot to murder Kennedy? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I had no idea about this. I can't wait to research this.
I can send you I can send you the links, madam. I can do that. For you, I will annotate and make it referenceable. For you.
Thank you.
Put a riff number on that, Bill Kelly.
That's right, Bill Kelly. If Bill Kelly, if you had hair like hers, I'd probably send it to you too, but I'm not gonna. Okay, that's all I got, guys. That was it. That's all I had for that. Rob, is it about time to answer the mailbag, homie?
It is.
Let's do it. Emails.
Somebody still hasn't
dig my
answered
hand
mine.
down here in the sack.
Somebody has a what?
Somebody still hasn't answered mine. I sent you guys like a page and a half of questions once, and that's when you guys were like, just get on the show.
Maybe Rob was saving that one for the show.
Well, we answered some of them. I think we were
like
going to
2.
continue and then forgot about it. Yeah.
It's all good. Actually, one day they were so important to me that I do want to, again, have a discussion about all this because there's some important stuff that I have no answers to, and I don't think you guys have them either. So let's get those. Anyway.
Well, you're coming back on the show. Hey,
I hope so.
Yeah.
I have some. Yuri Nosenko is a big part of my life because he's involved with my grandfather, so I have that. And then I also have talked, I think you've been in the conversation where me and Rob were talking about my knowledge of Dorothy Kilgallen and all that jazz.
Yep. Hey, can't wait.
Okay.
Can't wait.
I'm always around. Okay, Robert, email.
All right. We got an email from Tim's nephew, Randolph, the eugenicist. It says, hey, guys, I wonder if you could give a shout-out to my Uncle Tim. He's a great fan of the show, as you know, but he's been feeling a bit low and depressed recently. You see, he was expecting a gold-framed invitation and first-class plane ticket to France to attend the premiere of the new JFK assassination documentary by his good friend, film director Tobias Granite. He was hoping to stay in a 5-star hotel in Paris and to dine at some of the French capital's top Michelin-starred restaurants. Appearing on stage in his tuxedo at Cannes would have been the highlight. He even bought a new pair of black, shiny Velcro sneakers to wear on the night. Sadly, none of that ever happened. Granite said the invitation got lost in the mail, and we think it's kindest to let Uncle Tim believe. But for the last month, he's been sitting alone in the dark, watching TV in his sweatpants. Far from top-class French meals, he's been surviving on a box of frozen croissants from Costco.
Did he say alone in the dark, watching TV in his sweatpants?
Yes.
I do that all the time.
Wow.
He just keeps mumbling, Dulles, Dulles, Dulles. So, a kind word from you guys might just old Uncle Tim out of his funk. Thanks, Randolph, the eugenicist.
Oh, wow.
I don't even know. Tim's doing well.
What, alone in sweatpants watching TV?
I do think it's kind of shitty.
I do that all the time.
I do think it's kind of shitty that Oliver Stone would not take Jim DiEugenio to France, to Cannes for the film festival. I do think that's a little shitty.
I think Oliver Stone needs me to punch him in the face.
I'm sure DiEugenio put in way more work on this documentary than Stone ever did.
You know, I would think that Oliver Stone would at least, when putting all this together, he would ask Oleg Deripaska for enough seed money to afford those plane tickets. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Oliver Stone's got his big name behind it. Of course, you know, the biggest thing he ever did in his life was the movie JFK. And, of course, just having Oliver Stone's name attached to something like that is going to, you know, have eyes on it. But I think most of this documentary was written and based on DiEugenio's books and by him himself. So, yeah, it is pretty dirty that, you know, hey, stay at home, buddy, in the dark in your sweatpants eating frozen croissants from Costco while I go over here to cons and do all the press and wave and get all the accolades. So,
look like
but
a fat,
you get what you get.
Drunk.
Well, yeah. I mean, so has Mr. DiEugenio expressed, you know,
any feelings?
Yeah, any
this?
negative feelings over not being able to go, or is he cool with it? Can you tell?
I don't know. I'll have to go back and take a look at the education forum and see if anything's been popping up on there. But yeah, I don't think anybody has really asked him how he feels about not being included in all.
You know what though, man? He may have hung back at the house, may have hung back in California due to COVID, you know, spiking and all the traveling. You don't know. You know, we don't know. I'm giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. It's a kinder, gentler Doug today.
No, that was a very true comment. It could have been. Yeah.
But I'm like Rob.
Okay,
though, but if he didn't want to, it is kind of shitty. You know, like I don't want to take it. Yeah.
Well,
hey, I wish him all the luck in the world with this documentary. Absolutely, man. I want this thing to go far and wide and be distributed and change people's minds. Even if it changes people's minds and they go, well, okay, it wasn't a lone nut. It was, even if they go CIA, you know, consensus view of CIA primacy. Hey, at least we're flipping them, you know, and then maybe they'll start critical thought and they'll start eliminating the impossible, you know. But it's absolutely a benevolent thing, man. I hope they're successful.
All right, our next one comes from.
Oh, sorry.
Our next one comes from Jason Seelman, a regular listener of our shows. He says, "Hey guys, I had a blast with this, and I'm still not 100% satisfied with my results. But here's what I have."
Oh, dude, he was messaging me about this.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So. Off the hop, my numbers are sketchy with regard to who owned a movie camera in 1963. Stats are swayed because Kodak introduced the Super 8 in 65 and sales shot through the roof, even though there were quite a few households who owned the 8mm because it was simpler and less bulky than the 16mm. Nevertheless, I found stats of Americans traveling abroad and a National Geographic ad from 1960 to estimate the number of home movie cameras in the United States in 1963, and it is 0.79% of American households had a movie camera in 1963. Okay, so here you go. Now there's a lot of numbers here, so follow me. In the year 2000, there were 13,686 John Martins and 1,317 Jack Martins. Wasn't it another Jack Martin other than Guy Bannister's buddy who took the Oswald film? And that was another John Martin. But again, John and Jack.
And then I found that other one in.
I mean, look at John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Sorry, remember I found that other one in the conspiracy book too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
there's another John Martin out there. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, I added them together to help their odds. I estimate there were only about 8,596 John or Jack Martins in 1963 in the United States. If they were the family type, following the 67.4% marriage rate for the time, that gives us 5,794 John or Jack dads in the U.S., and if only 0.79% of them had movie cameras, then we have, at best, 46 John Martins with a film reel camera in 1963. The odds of one of them capturing the last moment of the late President Kennedy's life is pretty incredible, but no more than any other person with a film camera that day, which was about 4 million to 1, or 0.034427%. But the odds of 2 John Martins with a film reel camera capturing related footage, Oswald and Kennedy, is about a 0.000011078% chance.
Rob, wow.
So
yes.
In other
Good work.
words, not a lot.
No, it's
right.
well,
And the
this
fact
man-
that both of them are from Minnesota, right? You
Right.
throw that into the mix as well. So the astronomical odds of these guys being unrelated is practically 1 trillion to 1.
Wow.
Hey, you want to hear something funny? I heard a
Hold on.
Yeah.
I
Real
heard a
quick,
podcast recently, right? I heard a podcast recently. The guest, you ready for this? Actually said, that John Martin took footage of General Walker's mailbox and window and Lee Oswald.
Yes, he did.
Complete coincidence.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Probably
Right.
just a coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah. Guess what I did? This is what I'm glad you just said that. No one online, I could not find anyone who lifted the footage so you could see clear, because it's hard to see. There's a couple men, some sitting, some standing at a doorway, and one looks like Oswald. He has the aura of Oswald. So I couldn't find it lifted, and I saved it. I pulled it all up on my computer. It's not Oswald, but I have a clear view of everything now in it. Like I can see, because have you guys seen how dark the video is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
poor quality, yeah.
if you have the ability to pull it up, do that. If not, I can send you what I pulled up. You can see everything clear as day.
Did you stabilize it?
Huh.
No, I don't think I did. I just pulled up I pulled up the contrast and then definition and sharpness, things like that. Easy stuff.
Oh,
Anyone
yes.
could do it,
Send me
I'm
the link.
surprised
I'd
no
love
one
to see
has.
it.
Okay, perfect. I'll do that.
All right, but that's not all from this Jason Seelman. Up next, the flight of Minnesota. I estimate about 34,139 of them moved to Texas in the 60s, and well, fuck. There are just not enough John Martins to give me an entire person, let alone two, to make that trip in 1963. And he says, love you guys.
Good
Cannot wait to do
point,
more of this. Jason Seelman.
Wow,
So that
thank
pretty
you,
much
Jason.
cements the fact that, it's more than a coincidence. Let's just leave it at that.
We already knew, but look at that. That is some good stuff. Wow. What a
Yeah,
great
All right,
podcast.
next one up, we got a follow-up from Jason again.
Okay.
So we got another one from Jason. He says, hey, guys, one more thing I would like to add in response to this podcast, and that is regarding the other three podcasts, which Rob mentions in the last show, that also centers around the assassination of President Kennedy. I would like to take this opportunity to provide a listener's review of them for your enjoyment, or dismissal, or whatever the hell you want to do with it. Okay, so for the Awakened Reality podcast, JFK assassination, these two guys are okay. As Rob said, they go through a lot of archive stuff, as well as things like the supposed ties to the mafia. I enjoy their show because they drink local beers and the talk is somewhat loose, although they have pre-written topic notes. The downside is that there's a bit of conjecture tossed around by one of them specifically, and I've called them out on comments regarding certain groups of people and assumptions had on mental health when discussing Marilyn Monroe, for which they acknowledged in a following podcast, and I commend them on that. They've had one guest who knew less than they did about the case. A redeeming quality is that they seem a little younger, and it is inspiring that they are advocates for the truth. So that's his take on the
Well, good for
Awakened
those
Reality
guys.
podcast, JFK.
And to be fair, we do a lot of speculating too. On the Dallas action, on the Lone Gunman, on here. We do our own sort of reckless speculation.
But it's informed speculation. It's not wild and reckless. But
Rob, was that a follow-up to the one I was upset about?
yes.
Yes, that man. I can't wait to express all of my feelings.
You're
the truth.
You're talking about Mark Shaw's video that I put out on the vault. Now this is about a whole different, because
really.
Yeah, last show I think we talked about a couple different JFK assassination podcasts that are out there that we weren't even aware were out there, other than our own. So
okay.
This is what he's talking about. There was three
and then they
specific
touched subject on it. Okay.
Yeah, they touched on it. Yeah, the one you're talking about is an interview with Mark Shaw, who was.
Did you ever finish
got a new book out.
His whole thing is that it's all Robert Kennedy's fault, is his point of view. Had Robert Kennedy not assassinated Marilyn Monroe, therefore JFK wouldn't have been assassinated later. It is the biggest bunch of bowl of crappy, I just don't even know what to say, words, just shit.
Hey, are you guys familiar with the theory? I just learned this the other day on the phone with Ted Rubenstein. All right, I didn't know this, that the big theory is that Marilyn was murdered with a poison enema?
Yes. Yep, I can tell you, one day I have to be on here, I can tell you every single detail. And you know what's funny? I don't even have to research it. It's embedded in my brain because I've been obsessed with this since I was a child. And the book, Anthony Summers came out with his book, which is so well detailed. It's so sourced. And it blew my mind away as a child, so I actually read it twice a year.
Well, you know, I told Ted that I was not familiar with that, right? So I made up it might be 20 years down the line, but I told Ted, I made a pledge to him. It might be 5, 10, 20 years. The series finale, the podcast finale of the Dallas action is going to be all about Marilyn Monroe's enema. So there.
That's funny. Well, I can definitely send you a whole bunch of links about that. Wow. It is very mysterious what happened. It's quite incredible, that's for sure. The big thing is there was no glass in her room, and her water wasn't working, and her door was locked. So she didn't have a way to take the medicine she apparently took there, and she also had an enema. There was proof of that. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about one day.
Oh yeah. All right. The next podcast this guy was talking about was it's called Conspiracy JFK, and this is the one, Doug. It was based on it because of UFOs, right? So he says the UFO guy. I really tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but it gets far too deep into the tinfoil hat territory, and I can only assume he's a flat earther who blames the Jews, making us believe it's round. Read from the page, it is without spirit or soul. I had to stop listening after about a dozen episodes. Bless your heart. Now go pound sand.
Hoo-ah!
The next one called JFK. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I have an acquaintance who is quite popular with some type of news show and a YouTube channel and all sorts of works for A&E. And he is 100% on that belief. And I actually think that he's a disinformation pushing that. And I did tell him that I thought that. And then he said that we probably shouldn't talk for my safety anymore.
Oh, wow.
Crazy,
oh, my goodness.
Crazy, eh?
Are they going to carry you to the edge and toss you off? Is that what's going to happen?
I know. I was like, what?
Damn.
He said because of who my grandpa was, we shouldn't be talking. It was really crazy, but sorry.
All right. The last one here is the podcast called JFK, The Enduring Secret. He says, this guy recently released episode 46, and I actually don't hate what he does for about two-thirds of it. He opened the series with reading the summary from the Warren Report. He's discussed many documented and recorded testimonies, as well as pre-recorded interviews from folks at the Sixth Floor Museum, the men who killed Kennedy, in addition to other news items and reports. He is very much against the findings of the official narrative and states it multiple times. However, he has also tried to compare individual witness testimonies to themselves over the years, how they've changed, contradicted themselves. I like how he's broken the story up in sections and addresses individual people over the span of the story, opposed to several people year by year. The other third of the show is full of personal memoir fluff and dedications to, and this reminds me of something my dead son said once. Wow. It's about a 12-minute introduction and a 40-minute show. I find myself fast-forwarding through most of it. His storytelling is drab and just read off the page, yet polar opposite to the previous podcast, injecting too much life and personality. I'm willing to bet this guy's podcast can be found in writer form, because I would bet that he doesn't ad-lib or improvise even a heartbeat. They all have qualities and they all have crap. So I guess the top dogs on the topic, the most enjoyed, listened to, respected, and engaging podcast in Canada, proclaimed by me, is the Dallas Action, the Lone Gunman, and Quick Hits in no particular order.
Boom! Thank you very much, sir. Dude, you rock. You know what? You just got yourself
in. Nice.
He just got himself inducted into the Dallas Action Honor Roll. I don't put people in that category very much, but there you go, man.
Yes, and
thanks, bro.
I got a PS too for this for Caroline. PS. Caroline's question about who John Martin is working for. I am 97.44% in agreement that it was Walker, but it is additionally super suspect that Martin is told to go to New Orleans to check out this Oswald guy, and it very coincidentally is when the street fracas happens. Thinking about them odds again, unless Martin followed Oswald around for a week before the event, which I have heard it said that it appeared to be staged. It's just the timing is just so. Yeah. Peace and love, gents. Jason.
Dude, thank you, Mr. Jason. Thank you. That's a good point there at the end about the Walker thing. You know, yeah, I just don't think it's a coincidence that he ended up taping them both. That film means something, guys. That film means something. I don't know what it means.
For sure.
Rob's math work just showed us that it's impossible.
Yeah, absolutely. And that film means something. That guy was not, I don't think it was an accident. Nope.
No.
Not at all.
The fact that he's the one that got that famous footage of Oswald, that's amazing alone.
I know. All right, I got one from Chris O'Brien, and he is from Scotland. So what's up, Scotland? Wow. Hi, guys. Greetings from Scotland. This is my first email to you.
I'm familiar with that name. Absolutely.
I was recently involved in a discussion, in quotes, with Fred Litwin on Facebook regarding the Garrison case. I referenced author Joan Mellon as someone I respect and believe in relation to the Garrison investigation. Litwin said, among other things, that Professor Mellon relied too much on Thomas Beckham for her book, and that what Beckham said was all over the place. However, Beckham is a man, I believe, thanks in large part to Rob, and yes, he lied to Garrison, we all know that, but he changed his story years later when given immunity by the HSCA. I don't get why Litwin and his ilk refused to accept that Clay Shaw was CIA, that Shaw knew Oswald and Ferry, and that he was involved in the planning of the JFK hit. Litwin also claims Garrison was homophobic and went after Shaw because of his sexuality, but Garrison as DA, as Joan Mellon has pointed out, did not pursue and prosecute gay men for their gay activity. On the contrary, Garrison was a liberal and was respected by gay men as well as people of color. I'm asking you to speculate, but my question is this. Why do people, like Fred Litwin in particular, try their best to clear Clay Shaw and discredit Jim Garrison? What is their motivation all these years on? Thanks for your efforts in the JFK case. Love the podcast. Keep up the good work. Chris. Bonnie Scotland.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for the email. Why Lone Nutters do what they do, I have no clue. Dude, on the Dallas Action, I have taken to at the top of the show, just saying, look, Lone Nutters, cut the fucking show off. There's nothing here for you. I don't give a shit what you think. I don't give a damn what you say. And at some point in this show, I'm going to talk shit about you and your ilk. I don't care I don't care about debating you. I don't care what you think. Lone Nutterism, no. Dude, I don't know why they do what they do. I don't know why 58 years later, and we established that for me early in the show, 58 years later, there are people who get up every day and sit at a computer and spend, a substantial amount of time every day defending the Warren Report. I don't know what the psychology is, and I don't know who's paying them. Have no clue.
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
What they say and their motivations, Mr. Chris, I have no damn clue, and I do not care. Hell with them.
I'll say this. Because we're targeting Fred Litwin here specifically, and I've had him on my show twice, and I do like Fred as a person, and we get along just fine, although we don't agree on much when it comes to the Garrison case or the Kennedy case in its entirety.
Yeah, but you guys are buddies, right? Friends.
Yeah. I mean,
you're friendly with him. You're friendly with him.
He's somebody I can have a conversation with and not get out of hand or names being called. And he believes what he believes for whatever reason. And he's certainly entitled to his beliefs, one way or the other. But again, as you know, him and DiEugenio had this big thing, there's,
see, that's what I don't understand. Like, why?
Three papers on him on Kennedys and King.
I know, but that's what I don't. That's what I don't get. I'm just not built that way. Like, why did Jim DiEugenio even? Why do they even engage these people? I mean, you're more or less don't have an adversarial relationship with him. It's more of a researcher to researcher thing, right? Because he sent you stuff that you're like, oh shit, I've never read that. But this public sparring, it's like, why do you gotta the Litwin follies? I mean, dude, Mr. DiEugenio, that's hours of your life you're not going to get back writing about that guy.
Right.
Contradicting.
The reason I had Fred Litwin on the show is because he has spent a lot of time researching his books and following the case. He was a lone nutter before, he was a conspiracy theorist before, and he's since changed his mind. And I gave him a forum to say what he had to say for people who don't know and just read stuff randomly online, killing this guy. He was nice enough to send me a copy of his book. He's smart enough to come on one of the hottest JFK podcasts in the world.
The hottest.
Okay, and that's what I wish more people would do. But, some people just aren't that smart. You would think, Doug, that if you spend all this time reading and writing and researching a book that you're trying to sell, that you would ask to come on one of the hottest shows in the JFK assassination world. You're not going to get on CNN for it. You're not going to get on, some major news outlet to promote your book. The audience, your targeted audience, are people that are going to listen to shows like ours. Okay?
Yep.
That are interested, who will buy the book.
Why wouldn't you reach out and say, hey, man, I just wrote a book. I'm going to send you a copy. You want to have me on the show? And I've had lots of authors do that, but there's plenty out there that have not. And I don't understand why, if you're trying to sell books. I don't get it.
I think they're afraid of your questions, Rob.
Well, there might be, but
that would be
I try
the
to.
Reason I could think.
Look, I respect everybody that agrees to come on my show. I'm not going to attack 100%. Anybody.
You are so kind, and I've heard you deal with lone nutters, and you're very much polite. And you let them talk. Everything's fine.
See, I'm different than Rob. I just don't put myself in a position to have to fucking deal with them.
It was hard for me to have that phone conversation with that man because we had so many disagreements. We were both so polite, but it was just hard internally.
And I do it because, I want people to see where these people are coming from and make their own mind up. Is this guy full of shit? Does he not know what he's talking about? Is he just pulling things out of the air, or does he have a somewhat legitimate point? Until I actually hear from somebody or read their book, you don't know. So, as long as it's somebody that's not crazy ass, there's people out there that are just crazy from the jump, But if they are, willing to come on and talk about it, then, they know what kind of show they're coming on. They know what I believe. But to come on and I let them have their say. I'm not adversarial unless they want to be a dick to me, then I'll be a dick back. But, if we can keep it civil, we keep it civil. And I always try to tell them, look, you come at me sideways, I'm going to come at you back. So just be prepared. But, so yeah. And our last email today.
That was totally a mouse error, Rob. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I did not mean to do that. I bumped it, dude. I bumped it with my hand. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Our last email comes to us from Jones Mellons.
Oh, my God. Wait a minute. What did you say?
Our last email today is from Jones Mellons.
That was creepy as hell.
Okay, go ahead.
Hey, guys. I'm thinking of starting a sort of 1960s like folk rock cover group in the JFK assassination protest genre. Being a couple of in-the-know guys, which proposed name of my group do you think will fly best? The Fetzerizers, the Mark Lane Pliers Nexus, Roy Truly's Lunch Bag, the Lone Nutters, Wesley's Wangers, or the Love Ladies. Any other suggestions would be most welcome. Love, Joan.
I'll have you know that producer Will, who Rob has met, we actually had, when that Roy Truly's Lunchbox, when that came up last time, Will and I had that conversation. Roy Truly's Lunchbox would make a damn good name for a band.
Oh,
absolutely.
would it ever?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Payne's Garage would also be good, but I hate her, but that's way better.
Ruth Payne's Garage is a great name for a band, yeah.
It's a book name, though. So.
Hell yeah. Jones. Like Jones Harris. Okay, I get it now.
You guys, I'm sitting at 9% right now, so are we close to ending? Not that I wanted to, but...
Yeah, we know what?
Less than 5 minutes left.
Yeah, we're probably great. Yeah. Rob, I didn't.
That was the last email.
I didn't happen to look at the clock before we started.
Yeah.
Dope.
Go ahead and.
That's a great episode.
So we got to listen. Okay, so now is the time when we say, Miss Caroline, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
You're going to come back and join us, right?
Many times, I hope.
All right. Caroline Chason, everybody. Rob, you begin, sir. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I too would also like to thank Caroline for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure and a very fun episode to do and very informative. So thank you, Caroline, for coming on and joining us. And if you would like to follow more from what I do, the Lone Gunman Podcast, Twitter at the Lone Gunman 7, or follow the Facebook page. Just search it on Facebook, and you can download and listen to all of my shows anywhere fine podcasts are listened to. If you're listening to this, you've found them all already, probably. So, Doug.
And you can find my show, The Dallas Action, presented by Wall Street Window, anywhere you find this and all other true quality podcasts. That's the Dallas Action Podcast, ongoing historical research and analytical study of the JFK assassination, like Quick Hits, another fine podcast from Drop D Podcast Productions from the heart of Music Row in beautiful Music City, USA. So, for Miss Caroline and for Rob, this is Doug saying tune in again next time when, while explaining his strategy for financial independence and stability in his golden years, we'll hear Rob say,
this podcast goes to shit. We got to wait tables.
We are out.
Peace.
This podcast goes to shit. We got to wait tables.